the destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Tuesday, December 21st, 2021. My name is Emma Vigeland, and for Sam Seder, and this is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Biden is now in the bargaining stage of grief. He's reportedly trying to save his entire presidential agenda by pleading with Joe Manchin, whose line is apparently John of the child tax credit for Build Back Better, until it isn't, until it's something else. Meanwhile, Chuck Schumer is still pushing for a filibuster carve-out on voting rights, which was supposed to be their next priority in the Senate as Build Back Better stalled, but stop me if you've heard this before. It seems unlikely because Manchin opposes it. The extremely contagious Omicron variant now makes up for more than 70% of new U.S. cases. That's really quick because it was like a few weeks ago it was 1%, although we don't have the testing capacity to fully know, to be honest.
Yeah, it might have been here before or when it was in South Africa, frankly.
Yeah, the idea that we still have a South Africa travel ban is pretty dumb. This comes as new cases have exploded in New York, which has seen an 80% increase in 2 weeks. In response, the Biden administration has announced a plan to provide 500 million free COVID tests to Americans by mail to those who request them. Remember a few weeks ago when Jen Psaki mocked that idea? I too. The frequently litigious Donald Trump is suing the New York Attorney General Tish James in an attempt to halt the civil investigation into his business and stop any further criminal investigation. Probably not going to work. The long Kellogg strike appears to have ended. Reuters is reporting that a majority of workers have voted in favor of a new 5-year contract. More on that when we have more details. And lastly, Haitian asylum seekers are suing the Biden administration for their treatment at the border a few months back, alleging that the Biden administration knew they were coming strategically, but strategically made no humanitarian preparations, which seems very accurate. All this and more on today's program. Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. Sam is out today, as he is for the rest of the week, and as a live broadcaster for the rest of the year, although we do have those best of shows, which I'm very excited about. If you haven't caught every episode of the Majority Report and haven't been a religious watcher, that's a great opportunity for you to catch up on some of the great shows that you might have missed. There's a lot there. So, and also, if you have not bought your tickets yet for the big live, please do so. January 16th in Boston. I can't believe how close that is. That's less than a month away. We're going to be there. Vaccine mask requirement. If you feel safe doing so, please come. We'd love to see some faces and hear some like actual human beings. That'd be lovely.
Yeah, I mean, it's my favorite, the most gratifying experiences that I've had doing this job has been meeting people at the MR and the TMBS live shows. It's a very cool group of people, and I wish that we had more opportunity to do it then. But yeah, we're all boosted for Boston, and well,
Matt got his booster yesterday.
I did, yeah.
I'm
feeling okay.
He's feeling okay. I mean, for me, definitely the symptoms after the second shot were worse than the booster symptoms.
That's my experience so far too. Yeah. I'm a little bit hungover though, also.
Yeah, it's like I think maybe that was me too. I think I had some wine after my second shot.
You have to celebrate.
Yeah, I was like relieved, and I mean, it sounds corny, but I think I got like a little emotional after I got, because it was just such a stressful time, and then to be fully vaccinated, I was like party up in my apartment, by myself basically.
I watched the the Lucy and Desi Arnaz dramatic sort of documentary. And
documentary?
There's like some documentary stuff interspersed with it.
Oh, really?
And it's, I guess maybe it was the wine, but I enjoyed it.
The
maybe a fun
the one with Nicole Kidman?
Exactly, yeah. And what's Javier Bardem?
I loved I Love Lucy growing up, and I'm interested in the Red Scare angle, which I've heard is a big part of it.
That's an interesting part of it, yeah.
Yeah. But regardless, we have news to cover today. It's a News Tuesday, which, usually it's easy for Sam to carry a lot of the weight here, so we'll see how I do. And there's a lot going on, obviously, with Manchin & Co. But let's first start with a little bit of fun, and also something that we need to be paying attention to and tracking for 2024. As Omicron spreads throughout the country and completely takes over as the dominant variant, I mentioned that 70% of detected cases now are Omicron at the very least. Evidence is increasingly suggesting that while most vaccines do provide protection against serious illness from Omicron, Pfizer and Moderna plus a booster, given the time frame in which many people initially got vaccinated, if you're getting a booster, that's it. I mean, I'm not sure what the data is on if, like, say you got your actual second shot, yesterday, but just safe to assume that if you got vaccinated in the summer, your booster's coming up, or the spring, your booster's coming up, and that's what's going to protect you from Omicron. And they're protecting against what it seems like the initial data is showing, infection from Omicron.
Yeah, that's what it looks like for if you're triple vaxxed, I guess you can call it now, with Moderna and Pfizer. I'm Pfizer, and that is apparently it's the one that guards against infection from Omicron. Every other one does do some to protect against severe illness, which is important, and it's something that the anti-vaxxers, of course, will gloss over. Yeah,
and it's also important too, and we mentioned this on the show yesterday, that the Pfizer and Moderna, the vaccines, the mRNA, whatever, they all kind of use similar technology, but this specific kind of technology, Pfizer and Moderna, is just for Western countries and rich countries, the ones that actually protect against infection. However, boosters are available in the United States, so please get one if you can, if you're eligible. Now, all of these Republican politicians who are trying to appeal to anti-vaxxers are vaccinated and boosted. Not all of them, but many of them, including Donald Trump. So Donald Trump was doing what was this, Bradley? What rally was he doing here?
It's the final stop of his tour with Bill O'Reilly in Dallas.
Right, exactly. Wow, what a gropey, weird, sexual harassy conference that must be. Donald Trump and Bill O'Reilly are touring around the country, and Trump here tries to walk a very fine line, which he's been trying to do really since he got vaccinated as one of the earliest people, early in 2021, I believe, at maybe end of 2020.
It's a Trump vax.
Right. He's trying to, like, it's literally impossible. Not that, honestly, cognitive dissonance is something that his supporters are completely familiar with, but he's trying to make this work logically, appeal to anti-vaxxers while also taking credit for the scientific achievement that is the vaccine, and revealing himself that he's been vaccinated and boosted. Here he is telling a crowd that, where they sort of boo him.
But look, we did something that was historic. We saved tens of millions of lives worldwide. We, together, all of us, not me, we got a vaccine done, 3 vaccines done, and tremendous therapeutics like Regeneron and other things that have saved a lot of lives. We got a vaccine done in less than 9 months that was supposed to take from 5 to 12 years. Because of that vaccine, millions and millions of people. I think this would have been the Spanish flu of 1917, where up to 100 million people died. This was going to ravage the country far beyond what it is right now. Take credit for it. Take credit for it. It's a great, what we've done is historic. Don't let them take it away. Don't take it away from ourselves. You're playing right into their hands when you sort of like, oh, the vaccine. If you don't want to take it, you shouldn't be forced to take it. No mandates, but take credit, because we saved tens of millions of lives. Take credit. Don't let them take that away from you.
Okay, so the president made news.
Do you agree with that? Right?
talking to a mirror?
Both the president and I are vaxxed, and did you get the booster?
Yes.
I got it too. Okay, so...
Oh, don't, no.
Oh, wow.
That's all. There's a very tiny group of it.
I have to be clear because I'm the only one on mic, me and Bill. That was a tiny boo, not a lot of booing, not the most booing.
Trump just objectively more responsible than most Republicans on this issue at this point.
Okay, we can touch on the Trump thing in a second, but when you speak of most Republicans, let's contrast it with DeSantis, who I believe this media appearance was before Trump gave him his cues, because we know DeSantis likes to do whatever Donald Trump does, except, worse for the Republican base. Here is DeSantis, also probably boosted, trying to bumble his way out of this conversation with Maria Bartiromo on the booster.
I mean, Governor, we're not even sure what fully vaccinated means anymore. The other day, Dr. Fauci said, we could be that fully vaccinated means 3 shots, which is 2 shots for the vaccination and then 1 booster shot. Have you gotten the booster?
So I've done whatever I did, the normal shot, and that at the end of the day is people's individual decisions about what they want to do. But these boosters, in terms now, Florida, we ban vaccine passports. We won't let them fire you, even private businesses, over this because we don't think that's appropriate. But one of the reasons why we took those steps is because we knew the definition of vaccination would be a shifting target. And I predicted this a month and a half ago, and people said that I was wrong. And now we're starting to see it come to fruition. So there's going to be people who've done maybe 2 Pfizer shots who are not doing booster, and they could be considered in certain parts of the country to be unvaccinated and then denied the ability to participate in society like everybody else. It's gone way, way too far, and that is a decision that people should make for themselves, but they should not have their rights, freedoms, or liberties restricted based on these boosters.
Yeah, no follow-up, I would imagine, from Maria Bartiromo. Don't quote me on that, but that seems like overwhelmingly likely. I got the normal one. Damn it. If only I had heard if Donald Trump had gotten his booster or not, I would have known whether to say this publicly. And by the way, the whole personal choice line, they're literally booing their dear leader, Donald Trump, when he says that he got the booster. It's not about a personal choice. No. That's exactly, it disproves it. If this was all about personal liberty and your individual medical decisions, then they wouldn't care if DeSantis or Donald Trump had gotten the booster. But no, it's a cultural indicator of are you going to trigger the libs in a way that satisfies me?
Yeah, it's interesting because it's Florida politics is picking this up, saying that he got the Johnson & Johnson. That's what he means by the single shot, and the
normal one. And then
he got the normal one, and then he's just not answering the question about if he got that boosted. Which if you didn't get it boosted, it's irresponsible, frankly. Yeah. Why would you get the first one? But yeah. Well,
that's why. Then you have Maria Bartiromo who even knows what fully vaccinated means anymore? Things wear off.
We find this is first of all, it's a novel virus. This idea that we didn't know, there's not a book to go to, we're out in the Bible, we can go back to the Bible and see, this is how you deal with this disease, we sacrifice a goat. No, this stuff is new, knowledge is provisional. We're learning more and more all the time about it, and about how these vaccines work. Vaccine technology, which could have been public if we had this stuff nationalized, frankly, and didn't have to be breaking glass in case of emergency in the case we are now. We'd know more about them if we had been developing these technologies earlier. But
yeah. Speaking of Florida, I know somebody who resettled there from this area, lives there, big Trump supporter. Asked him, or maybe I heard the secondhand. Basically, he said that he doesn't believe that Trump got the vaccine. He's just saying that publicly to appease the masses.
Right. That's
right. So these are the people these are the same people that DeSantis and Trump are trying to appeal to. They work backwards from what they already believe. And I don't know why Trump would put it out there that he's gotten the booster to get booed at a Bill O'Reilly event, but that's
the deep state's got me. It's Tish James. She's gonna drop like a ton of bricks if I don't play nice about the vaccine. So take credit for me. Please take credit for me. This is totally not something I would be saying anyway.
Well, let's bring that back to wait, Bradley, what?
Just help me out. Help me out here, guys.
Yeah. I love the idea too, where he's It literally sounds like he's hyping himself up in the mirror before a speech. Take credit. You did this. You did this.
Probably saved 7 billion people doing that.
It could have been much worse, Donnie. It could have been much worse. It could have been the Spanish flu pandemic. Like 800,000 plus people recorded in this country have died from this virus.
It is funny imagining a world where Trump just decided to run as a Democrat instead and won presidency, and then he actually is taking credit for this. Like, you actually can see this. Like, I remember when I used to hang out with Bill and Hillary. If the only way to the office wasn't grifting these mouth breathers, MAGA people, maybe I could be taking credit for actually stopping a pandemic with these creeps.
Exactly. All right, folks, we are going to take a quick break, come back, get back to some more news.
Folks, if you're looking for the perfect last-minute holiday gift, check this out. One of our sponsors is Shaker and Spoon. It is a monthly cocktail subscription box that delivers the ingredients and recipes for amazing craft cocktails, and it's right to your door. Now, look, I am a cocktail skeptic because I don't like sweet things, and
Me neither.
And I don't like those. But they sent us a thing. They sent a box, and I took the one for mezcal. Bradley took the one for what? Rye? Okay. And so if you go right now to shakerandspoon.com/majority, they'll give you $20 off. This is what it does. Each monthly box comes with 3 different original cocktail recipes and enough ingredients for 12 cocktails, 4 from each recipe. So you get to, you get to mix and you play around, but and a lot of the ingredients they send is stuff that's hard to find on your own. There was stuff that I'd never even heard of. Like this botanical sort of like spray that you did at the end.
I love mezcal, so that's very exciting for me.
This was really good, actually. And the sizes are small, so you can have a taste of something you haven't tried before instead of having to commit to a full bottle of something that you might end up only using once. It's good. This is the thing about it that I really like. It introduces you to flavor combinations and, I guess, ingredients. Like, not just like like orange bitters or like this floral stuff that I had in the mezcal, and the recipe cards. Like I say, I don't like sweet cocktails, so you're able to sort of like measure how much you're going to put in. Literally last night, I went over, and this is actually going to be big, I think, over the next couple of months because I ain't going to a bar. Yeah, unless like we get another like night where it's like 55 degrees. I'm not going inside to a bar. Right. And so I think, within your pod of people, going and having a cocktail night is going to be fun. But the thing for me that I like about it is that I learned about, like, I don't like the botanical spray.
Okay.
But I like the other stuff. And so I made it once with the spray. You just do it a couple of times. But I like the bitters and I like this, and it really actually made like a delicious cocktail. And then I was like, now I know if I go out and I see like this, this ingredient or that ingredient, I know, like, make it without that. It just adds a certain sophistication to it. So, Shaker Spoon is now giving Majority Report listeners $20 off your first box when you go to shakerandspoon.com/majority. Or you can just click the link in the description. That's shakerandspoon.com/majority for $20 off your first box of delicious cocktails. Check it out. And they have different ones. They have mezcal, they have rye. I think there are other things that you can use that are based on a different liquor. But those are my 2 favorite, I got to say. Check it out. shakerandspoon.com/majority.
We are back. Thank you, Sam. Even though I'm in that video too, so it doesn't work as well as I'd like it to. So let's talk a little bit more about Build Back Better. News continues to trickle out about Manchin's seemingly abrupt self-ejection from the Build Back Better negotiations. The Biden administration is trying to coax Manchin back into talks. Now, Manchin reportedly went on Fox News on Sunday, ignored a call from the White House, and proceeded to blow up Build Back Better and say he was a no on the entire bill on live television. Now, what was the motivation behind this? I mean, this guy's ego is, we're learning even more and more about Manchin as an individual. It's pretty massive. Reports are now also saying in recent days that Manchin was butthurt over the fact that some of the details of his negotiations with the White House were leaked to the press, which, I don't know, that's just kind of what happens when you're a senator and your vote is defining on this massive piece of legislation.
How about all summer you had a secret agreement with Chuck Schumer that nobody knew about and that didn't get leaked to the press and wasted all of our time? So, like, I don't think you get the benefit of privacy on these matters anymore.
Yeah. This is from the New York Times. When word leaked the next day that Mr. Manchin, this is in the midst of last week's negotiation efforts between the White House and Manchin. When word leaked the next day that Mr. Manchin did not support the child tax credit as written, the cornerstone of the plan and a priority for most Democrats, Mr. Manchin was furious and snapped at Capitol Hill reporters, offering a profane denial that he wanted to remove the child tax credit provision entirely. So Manchin goes, oh, it must have been White House officials that leaked that to the press, throws a tantrum, goes on Fox News, basically like a child tries to get back at the Biden administration for not being tight-lipped about his own policy positions, goes on Fox. Now there is some sort of like vague hope that he can come back to the negotiation table if Biden kisses his ring enough. But like, what's also clear too is that the full details of Manchin's opposition to the child tax credit hadn't even come out yet, and they were way more damning. HuffPost article that came out maybe yesterday, I believe, on what Manchin has been saying about the child tax credit for months at this point. He's been against it, or at least, you know, he says, oh, I'm in favor of one version of it, essentially, which is going to involve work requirements, etc. But he's been bad-mouthing it as like a government handout for months at this point. This is reporting from HuffPost. Yeah.
I was just going to say, like, he's been saying it's like it's entitlement.
Yeah, right. I mean, he's going like 90s Bill Clinton, 80s Republican, whatever flavor you want. Publicly, his biggest gripes are about the cost of the bill. But privately, Manchin has told his colleagues that he essentially doesn't trust low-income people to spend government money wisely. In recent months, Manchin has told several of his fellow Democrats that he thought parents would waste monthly child tax credit payments on drugs instead of providing for their children, according to two sources familiar with the senator's comments. Continuing the child tax credit for another year is a core part of the Build Back Better legislation that Democrats had hoped to pass by the end of the year. The policy has already cut child poverty by nearly 30%. Manchin's private comments shocked several senators who saw it as an unfair assault on his own constituents and those struggling to raise children in poverty. Manchin has also told colleagues he believes that Americans would fraudulently use the proposed paid sick leave policy, specifically saying people would feign being sick and go on hunting trips, a source familiar with his comments told HuffPost. Manchin's office declined to comment for the story. Sounds like something you would do. The hunting trip is pretty specific, right? That sounds like, I mean, if I were in the situation, I was getting free money. You know that I wouldn't be truthful or act in good faith because I'm Joe Manchin.
People might get to enjoy themselves. Like, I don't understand what the problem is.
Yeah, okay. They spend the child tax credit money on drugs. Whoop-de-dee. That means they have to spend other money that they possess on raising their children.
Yeah, like what if they spend it on a gas-guzzling Maserati? Like, why? The question I have, though, is, like, why are we well, we're not, but why is... this is a rhetorical question, but why is Biden and the leadership accommodating this freak? Because he's been doing this the entire time. This confrontation should have come way earlier. Somebody talking like this about child tax credit should not be a member of your party. I'm sorry, you got to figure out your way to get your judges passed or whatever. But like, when he floats the idea of being independent, say, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, figure it out, because like this is unacceptable.
Or call his bluff on it. I mean,
yes, I mean exactly. Like you can't. But instead, we've just completely bent to his bad faith negotiation this entire time, and the question is why? Why are we doing that?
The answer will infuriate you. This is from the New York Times. Much of the president's optimism has been built on Mr. Biden's belief in the kind of good faith negotiations that he built his career on during 37 years in the Senate. Mm-hmm. One of his favorite lines is to declare that people can trust him because he has given his, quote, word as a Biden to follow through. I'm giving you my middle finger as a Vigeland. His exception, according to people familiar with his thinking, was that Mr. Manchin, whom he considers a friend, would adhere to the old rules of that chamber, working towards a solution, even if they disagreed about the details. That's like, oh, your mind is that of a child. Like, that is a fundamental misunderstanding of who you're dealing with.
Well, look, like, I think this is what Biden was like kind of ran on doing, right? This sort of nonsense. And the only problem is going to be when it fails. Are we going to have a fourth-rate discussion about that it failed, or are we just going to act like the progressives were too forward in their demands? And Washington there's tough battles, like David Axelrod says, and you just don't know who's going to win at the end of the day. It's like we tried our hardest, gave it 110%, and we just came out with an L on that day.
So Manchin is now, I mean, they're seemingly restarting negotiations. Manchin's initial counterproposal was basically everything except the child tax credit, the ACA expansion, the climate provisions, the universal pre-K provision, and all of that stuff. But the child tax credit is really the only, and again, it's just like a 1-year extension of it, or the different year figures are changing day by day. But that's the thing that approaches the most structural change in Build Back Better, and that's why he's opposing it. And it puts more money in the hands of people who need it desperately, and it also provides them with more economic power, and you can't have that.
That's the thing, is like with the Biden administration and all the spending that they did, guess what? The Republicans spent a lot of money during COVID too. It's good that we stopped this, but the structural stuff was always what to watch. And it's been completely given short shrift or disdained by the party leadership. The $15 minimum wage, absolutely no discussion of any sort of healthcare expansion. Like all this stuff is just gone, and now we're going to do investigation over Jan 6th. And like, look, I think we should be doing that after we passed like a $7 trillion infrastructure bill. But we're not going to do that. We're instead going to rely on that for a turnout in the midterms. And good luck for the Democrats, because I think they are going to catch a lot of losses.
Oh yeah. Well, we're not going to stop here and ripping on the Biden administration. Although here they did a good thing, but it's interesting how they got there, and we'll learn a little bit more in recent days. The Biden administration is rolling out a really good new policy on COVID testing weeks too late. This should have come right before the Christmas holiday and New Year's, when this is going to be like they knew Omicron was coming, even though now they're trying to backtrack and say we never could have seen this coming. And they also knew that the holidays would be an opportunity for a ton of COVID spread.
You could have looked at what Portugal was doing even before the Omicron thing, which is a much smaller spike than we see in states here, despite that calling a state of calamity and starting to slow things down to stop the spread.
So the White House is now preparing to send by mail for free as many as 500 million COVID testing kits to anyone who requests one. Now, of course, it has to be that, right? Like, you have to go through the process of asking for it. That's got to be the Biden way. In European countries, the policy is just, we're going to send you one. We're going to send you a few. So you have them on hand, as opposed to like, I am going to premeditate this COVID scare and reach out to the Biden administration.
It's like, well, I'm partying this weekend, so I better have some tests just afterwards.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, that's not a bad idea, but at the same time, it's better as a preventative measure. However, the concept of mailing free tests to Americans, it was seen as so radical just many years ago, right? Like this must have been an evolution, and the Democratic Party wasn't there, but they are now. Oh wait, here's Jen Psaki a few weeks ago literally mocking, and I know you've probably seen this clip already, but just given the news that's coming out today, it's important to replay this, mocking a reporter who suggested this idea.
Look at what we've done over the course of time. We've quadrupled the size of our testing plan. We've cut the cost significantly over the past few months. And this effort to push to ensure insurers you're able to get your tests refunded means 150 million Americans will be able to get free tests.
Complicated though. Why not just make them free and give them out and have them available everywhere?
Should we just send one to every American?
Maybe.
Then what happens if every American has one test? How much does that cost? And then what happens after that?
All I know is that other countries seem to be making them available in greater quantities for less money.
Well, I think we share the same objective, which is to make them less expensive and more accessible, right? Every country's going to do that differently. And I was just noting that, again, our tests go through the FDA approval process. That's not the
Whoops. Jen Psaki must have been unaware that the NIH was apparently working on this for quite a while. This was in the works, and either she was against it ideologically, hadn't gotten the MO from the president, or was unaware of it. That's dysfunction.
Yeah, it's a failure of imagination. We just don't have people in the administration that think the way that we need people to think during a pandemic with regards to like providing public goods for people like testing. That should just be like understood, and that would be an example of good governance. And it's like we can't figure out how to do it until we go through a whole news cycle about it.
Well, I mean, instead, it makes way more sense to have people purchase COVID tests, which, by the way, I can't find a pharmacy where I can find an at-home test right now. They're all out. Like, I'm at Walgreens. Yeah. No tests here available anymore. And then you can apply for a reimbursement for your $25 COVID test because we want to make the barrier to entry as high as possible so we can make as much, so the companies producing these tests can make as much money as possible, as opposed to proactively purchasing them and then mailing them to Americans, which is now exactly what's happening. And like, it's not even imagination. It's like a failure of understanding the world around you, right? I mean, that's part of it, but it's like a part of the American exceptionalist perspective of so many people in government. It's what's happening in Europe. I don't care. Yeah, it's totally, well, it's ideology. Like, right? Like they immediately go to, we share the same goals. We want to make this as affordable as possible, and like talk about efficiency and stuff like that. It's like that's not the goal. Isn't like the consumer experience of buying a COVID test. It is to let people know if they have coronavirus or not, and as fast as possible so they don't go infect other people. That is the thing. Like that's where it's at. And it's this miserliness of, well, we got to make sure we're not being wasteful in it. We spend billions, like hundreds of billions of dollars on like missiles we're never going to shoot off every single year, and that we can't, like some extra tests people might have. I mean, good God. Yeah. Well, speaking of the efficiency in the market, they're not even achieving their goals in that area. Like the U.S. lags behind other countries in making tests affordable as well. That was one of her stated goals there. In some countries, rapid tests sell for at least $1, whereas a pack of 2 tests can cost U.S. consumers more than $20. Biden previously directed insurance companies to cover the costs of at-home tests for policyholders, but that still requires upfront costs for consumers who must file claims and wait to be reimbursed. So it's just basically discouraging people. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, if you don't have money on hand, don't get tested. Just allow the spread. And that's, I mean, like the exact kind of callousness that Democrats and the Biden campaign in 2020 were rightfully criticizing Donald Trump on, as COVID spread was way more acute in low-income and non-white populations. So this is going to be in addition to their like incredibly convoluted reimbursement process that they've already proposed. ABC reports the 500 million free at-home tests that will be announced on Tuesday will be in addition to getting at-home tests reimbursed, and that will go into effect on January 15th. Again, though, just in time for the live show. Again, though, like, this is another failure, is that this, I mentioned this before, why was this not proactively done before the holiday season when these tests have been available for months at this point? I mean... Because coronavirus is over, remember? Yeah, that's what, I mean, honestly, that's where they're kind of at. Like, they're going to respond to the science in a way, in like a more competent way than, of course, Trump would, like put UV light in you and like let's not test anybody to pretend that COVID doesn't exist. But right now they're spooked about how their poll numbers look. One, that's because of the inability to pass anything with Build Back Better, but it also has to do with the fact that people don't feel like COVID has been adequately responded to as well. And so they're kind of at the point where they're fatigued and they want it to just go away, as opposed to being proactive. All right. Let's talk a little bit about Trump's lawsuit in New York City, or in New York. So the investigations into Donald Trump's finances and his business dealings is continuing. And Trump, he's, as I mentioned in headlines, tends to be quite litigious, likes throwing out lawsuits, doesn't really matter about the merit, but it's a part of the way that he bullies people. Just so you know, you can be sued if you try to come after me. He's deployed this tactic many times, and now he's going after Tish James, New York Attorney General, who recently said she would not run for governor in order to continue as Attorney General, which, like, for Zephyr Teachout, friend of the show, and one of the somebody who I'll probably be voting for in this race, not great news. But Tish James has been aggressive in investigating Donald Trump. The suit filed in federal court in Albany by Mr. Trump and his family real estate business argued that Ms. James's involvement in both inquiries was entirely politically motivated attack that Mr. Trump has deployed in the past when faced with scrutiny by law enforcement and others. So he's using the witch hunt offense. He's, I believe, used this same argument against Cy Vance, the outgoing Manhattan DA, who had a twin investigation into Donald Trump's finances and the business dealings of the company. Mr. Trump faces a high bar in proving that Ms. James violated his rights, according to legal experts, some of whom predicted that Ms. James would prevail even if a judge concluded that her comments were inappropriate. Her comments being like criticizing Donald Trump. Because, you know, if there's anything that you probably know about Donald Trump, it's that he is opposed to ideologically tilted attorney generals.
Yeah.
He will not stand for it. He will not stand for the esteemed office, whether it be on the state level or whether it be on the federal level.
Got to be independent.
Of attorney generals being political.
Unbiased.
That's why I fired Jeff Sessions, because the only way to not be political is to back everything I say or do. Sorry I didn't fire him, just forced him out. Mr. Trump's lawyers contend that Ms. James, the New York City public advocate at the time, campaigned for Attorney General as a part of an anti-Trump agenda during her campaign, which is true. During her campaign, Ms. James often invoked Mr. Trump on Twitter and in fundraising appeals. After being elected, Ms. James redoubled her attacks on Mr. Trump, the lawsuit argued.
Yeah, just a note on like witch hunts. Typically, they don't go after like extremely powerful people, for instance, like ex-presidents. Historically, they go after vulnerable people, often like women who aren't married or like widowed or something like that, that no man had authority over, and things like that. Not exactly like the Trump, I guess,
empire.
Yeah, but I also would say if prosecutors like Tish James are going to start a new thing about campaigning about how they're going to go after powerful people, I think that is a good that's a good thing, and
yeah,
I welcome that.
I mean, and you can be cynical about it and basically say, wow, that was a huge winner in New York State because it's a very blue state, people despise Trump here, makes total sense, and the money centers here also, like, you know, there's like there are enough people with money here who hate Trump that we're going to be in Tish James's favor. But the point is that I don't really care. Also,
it exposes New York State if they didn't do anything, because Trump is frankly a criminal. Like,
yeah.
You look at his real estate empire and the type of like,
and she has jurisdiction here,
and it's like she's fixing a problem that should have been dealt with in the 90s. Honestly, like Trump literally like legit works with like organized crime, and there's reporting to that effect, and that it's taken this long is an indictment of the system. It probably is politically motivated, but that's the only way you get actually high profile justice in this country, is if there's like a political valence to it. And guess what? Trump should acquit himself in the court of law. Right. Yeah. I mean, if you're truly innocent, go for it, dude. It just does blow my mind. Like, there has never been, I mean, obviously maybe since the Nixon administration, like a more, or even above that, a more obvious example of a president attempting to politicize and influence his own attorney general. And now we're going to accuse the New York attorney general of political malfeasance and like operating as if, as a party actor. Okay. And also Tish James
oversaw the Cuomo investigation. So I don't know how much how your claims about her being basically a partisan hack are going to be
She's
able to
biased
hold
against
water.
men, clearly.
Oh yeah, total feminazi, total feminazi. All right, maybe we'll get to this. Do you want to talk about your story, Matt?
Yeah, I'll come over there.
Well, hold on. Let me talk. We'll do this Ben Shapiro clip. Honestly, I mean,
Cool.
we're kind of going, and then we'll take a break, and then you can come. We're trying to implement a segment when I'm solo, where Matt does like one on-camera deep dive.
Yeah, where I sit in Sam's chair.
And I need to open up IMs. People should write in and say, like, give a suggestion on what this segment should actually be called. Right? You know, this is the M Majority Report. What is Matt's segment here?
Interesting. Yeah, it's a good little competition.
Yeah. All right, but let's get to this Ben Shapiro thing. So, Ben Shapiro, he is giving his take on Joe Manchin, essentially nuking the Build Back Better plan for now. And he had something to say about AOC and Ilhan Omar criticizing Joe Manchin for backing out of Build Back Better. Now, here he is trying to explain to all of us the intricacies of politics and incremental change, and why Ilhan Omar in particular in this clip is just so out of her mind.
For a $7 trillion package, because AOC and Ilhan Omar wanted it, these people are out of their minds. They truly do seem to think that like small boroughs in New York govern the entire country, and that senators are not answerable to their home states. And Ilhan Omar joined the crew. She slammed Manchin as well. Here is the horrible congresswoman from Minnesota.
Horrible. We all knew that Senator Manchin couldn't be trusted. You know, the excuses that he just made, I think, are complete bullshit. It is really disheartening to hear him say that he has been trying to get there for the people of West Virginia, because that's a complete lie. There are just so many things that, you know, the people of West Virginia desperately need. And we know that he is not working on behalf of their interest. And I really am just completely disappointed and disgusted by his reasoning.
Well, I mean, if the people of West Virginia don't love Ilhan Omar, I mean, wow. I mean, when she speaks, the people of West Virginia listen. That is definitely a state, West Virginia, where Ilhan Omar, I'm sure, is wildly popular. Her perspectives are super popular in West Virginia. Again, the delusional nature of progressives who think they have a national program, as opposed to the reality of politics, which is you're always cobbling together a coalition to do incremental things. That is most of politics. And that it turns out Joe Biden did not have a mandate for anything remotely like this. It's amazing. And they will continue deluding themselves along these lines, the progressives, which means that Joe Biden should get with the program, right? If he had any brains at all, if he didn't have mush for brains at this point, which, I mean, physically mush for brains, then he would probably be pushing for a piecemeal approach to a lot of this legislation. But I don't know if he can do it.
All right. Well, yeah. So I wanted to point this out because actually I was on Ben Burgess's show the other night and or last night, and he played this clip, and I noticed that Ben Shapiro, who's supposed to be the logic and facts guy, right? He's supposed to be facts above feelings, just looking at the hard data and making analyses that are unemotional and are practical. He begins that segment talking about how West Virginia is not on board for Build Back Better, right? How Joe Manchin can't support it, which is not true, because when you look at the polling, in fact, the provisions in Build Back Better are supported by a majority of West Virginians. And it depends on what you're looking at, but it is popular, so you can't make that case. He then plays a clip of Ilhan Omar criticizing Joe Manchin, and then goes with his like incredibly furrowed brow. He got triggered there. West Virginians can't get on board with Ilhan Omar. Do you know how popular she would be? I mean, she's Muslim, right? She individually would not be popular in West Virginia because he can't substantively talk about what Manchin is opposing in Build Back Better and the actual provisions and the popularity in that red state that Manchin is supposed to appeal to, all he can do is fall back on scary Muslim woman. People in West Virginia don't like her. Let's not talk about exactly the individual provisions that are polling quite well there. And so he does a very, I would say, emotional bait and switch with his audience, in which he changes the conversation from policy in Build Back Better and how voters in that state particularly feel about it to how they feel about one individual woman, and also her religion and Muslim people in general by proxy.
Yeah, what's funny about this is how all these folks like Shapiro and Crowder, or et cetera, nominally of the right, but they are like, it's hard to distinguish their politics from what Joe Biden, more cops. Biden was basically an anti-woke candidate, or Joe Manchin, basically a pro-corporate candidate. They like making them own that their politics are basically Joe Manchin's is one of my projects, because it's like when you talk about this populism stuff, that's where it really falls down. When you have to say, actually, peasants, you aren't worth any more of these billions. We have to send all these billions to Virginia so it can build giant houses for defense contractors. And instead of like this going to this like, well, it's piecemeal, right? And we need to figure out how to do pragmatic approaches to legislation. That's like fucking Barack Obama. Yeah. Right. Like that is, and it's so funny to me that these people act like they're like so far out against the mainstream. But you are Joe Biden. We're just with a red badge on your.
Well, I mean, he literally was talking about pragmatism there. Exactly. Ben's Amy Klobuchar.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, please.
And to say like, Joe Biden didn't have remotely close to a mandate to do this. I'm sorry. Yeah, he did. He had more of a mandate than he wanted, frankly, and that's why it's only one or two senators that actually comes out, and it's probably more than that, behind the scenes. But publicly, this is the show, song, and dance they have to do, because precisely Biden did have a mandate on this stuff.
Yes, exactly. And to make this point for the millionth time, if Ben Shapiro, facts and figures guy, was to look at the numbers, it would contradict what he's actually saying there. So he can't provide that context to his audience. He has to make it about, aren't you afraid of the fact that Ilhan Omar is from a different country and she is Muslim?
West Virginia, were
you censored yourself? Shadow banned. Yeah. All right. We are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will be joined by Matt for a lecture. We are live, and we are soon to be joined by Matt Leck of Left Reckoning, of Literary Hangover, of Majority Report fame, for his story of the day.
My story of the day, yes. Kill a little bit of time as I have.
Yes, please keep writing in on the IMs if you have any suggestions about Matt's little segment. Oh yeah, how tangled are those?
I got a bit of an issue here, folks.
All right, here, while you're doing this, I will read some of the IM suggestions about your segment. 3-point play with Matt Leck, says Say Bidet. That's pretty good. I mean, it's like basketball.
I don't really understand why, but I like 3-point plays in basketball.
Right. Prairie Fire Kowalski. Howdy, Emma and MR Crew. Segment names Matt's Majority Moment. If you're interested in learning a bit about cover crops, I'll be quick. 308. I will answer your call, Kowalski, for sure. Salty Line Cook. You want just one of these headphones?
Yeah, I might just have to.
Here, just take this. Okay. Sorry if you can't. Can they hear me now?
Hey, can you hear us now?
Can you hear us now?
Yeah, they can.
Wow, I'm so sorry. All right, we it was really getting good there too.
Yeah, we're gonna have to try that in the post game when we have the headphone situation figured out, because that's what caused the issue.
Really sorry. That was just a bit of it's technical difficulty.
Well, because
Matt's trying to do the tech stuff over there and then also do this, so it's
I'm ghostwriting the producer chair, so
yeah. All right.
Anyways,
well then we will head into the fun half. I guess this is one of them. One of the more the odder ends to the show. But yeah, no, Bradley, it's all good. Don't worry about it. We are back. We're going to head into the fun half where Bradley, is Nomiki going to be joining us?
Yep, she's here. You can let her in now.
Okay, great.
We'll let Nomi in now.
Awesome. But Matt, Left Reckoning, what's happening?
Yeah, Left Reckoning. David and I are going to do a best of a recap, probably earlier in the day on Wednesday, because we decided we want to do vacation and don't want to book a guest for this close to Christmas. And so we're going to do the bum steer of the year. Probably, I just to tease that, it's going to be the people who said Biden was FDR. And then I'll talk about some other stuff too. Look forward to that tomorrow. I'll give you the time, but I would probably say as early as 6 Eastern on Wednesday night, we'll be starting that.
Very nice. Nomi, hello.
Up? Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm changing my name in here.
Oh, nice. What is happening over on the Nomi Key show?
Nomi Keisha. Well, tonight on YouTube and then moving over to Rockfin, we have the one and only Chris Smalls. He's, of course, one of the leaders in the unionized Amazon movement. He's based in Staten Island. He was fired, of course, during COVID. And he's going to be giving us the updates on the Amazon unionization movement nationally, but also here locally in Staten Island. So that's tonight at 8 p.m. on our YouTube channel. And then we move over to Rockfin, and I'll give you tomorrow. We're doing a lot of pre-tapes this week because, of course, the holiday.
Makes sense.
So I have to remember exactly who's on tomorrow because I'm interviewing like 95 people, 5 hours of interviewing. You guys think this is just like, you just do it. Some people sit in their boxers and play games and stream their life and make millions of dollars all day long. But we professionals here.
No, that's like envious. I envy that.
I don't. I think it's like, frankly think it's lazy and people are being rewarded for it. And it's predatory too, because it's basically like, how many people in this world can actually do that? And so it's like preying on people's time and energy, and how many of them, I think all of YouTube is basically one pyramid scheme, basically. Like a lot of people think they're going to be famous. They just stream their lives and then like, they don't get to that status. Some do, with a lot of support behind the scenes. And that's that. Yeah. So that was not what who's on my show this week? That's what we're trying to figure out here. Yes. Programming. You know, we, as organized as we are, I do not do things. All right, we are talking, I don't know who's on this week.
All right, well, that's totally fine. We can
Molly Crabapple, I think. I don't know. Jordan Zacharian's on tomorrow. It's fun stuff.
Tell people a little bit more about that in the fun half, where we will head shortly. We'll be taking your calls, reading your IMs, and we will try that segment again with Matt now that the audio is fixed. Really sorry.
Wait, what happened? What did I miss?
It's just we're a little short.
There's an audio issue that happened as I ripped a spare headphone out of it's a long story.
Yeah, you're like angry. You ripped it out. Like I'm done with this.
He was trying to like go be on camera while also working our audio, and like
we were ghost riding the whip on me, and it crashed. So
Yep. That's what happens when the kids are here. Just no Sam. 646-257. Well, actually, I mean, honestly, he maybe brings more technical difficulties than he solves. So that's the reality of it.
Boomer life.
Boomer life. He's not a boomer, he would say.
Someone called me a boomer today, and I was like, what?
I'm so sorry that happened to you.
Thank you.
646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Bye-bye.
Left is best. Jamie and I may have a disagreement.
Yeah, you can't just say whatever you want about people just because you're rich.
I have an absolute right to mock them on YouTube.
He's up there buggy whipping like he's the boss.
I am not your employer.
You know, I'm tired of the negativity.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you. You're nervous? You're a little bit upset? You're riled up?
Yeah, maybe you should rethink your defense of that, you fucking idiots.
We're just going to get rid of you.
All right.
But dude, you want to smoke this joint?
Yes.
Do you feel like you are a dinosaur?
Some good shit.
Exactly. I'm happy now.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now listen to me. 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 847-906-501-457. 2, 38, 56, 27. 1/2. 5 8s. 3.9 billion.
Wow.
He's the ultimate math nerd.
Don't you see?
Why don't you get a real job instead of spewing vitriol and hatred, you left-wing Limbaugh?
Everybody's taking their dumb juice today.
Come on, Sammy.
Dance, dance, dance.
Ooh.
I had my first post-coital scene with a woman. I'm hoping to add more moves to my repertoire. All I have is the dip and the swirl.
Fine, we can double dip.
Yes, this is a perfect moment.
No.
Wait, what?
You make under $1 million a year. You're scum. You're not paying.
Excuse me? Fuck you, you fucking liberal elite. I think you belong in jail.
Thank you for saying that, Sam. You're a horrible, despicable person.
All right, gonna take a quick break. I want to take a moment to talk to some of the libertarians out there. Take whatever vehicle you want to drive to the library. What you're talking about is jibber jabber.
Classic. I'm feeling more chill already.
Good. Donald Trump can kiss all of our asses.
Hey, Sam. Hey, Andy. Are you guys ready to do some evil?
Hitler was such an idiot.
That guy might be a Nazi.
Agree.
No.
Death to America.
Do.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow, that's weird. No way! Unbelievable. This guy's got a really good hook.
Throw our hands up.
Ooh. Wow.
But Sam, I gotta get off.
No worries. Let's. I want to just flesh this out a little bit. I mean, look, it's a free speech issue. If you don't like me,
Hey, shut up! Thank you for calling into the Majority Report. Sam will be with you shortly.
We are back. We are
Hey, we're
back.
back.
We are back.
Oh, I'm back. Hi.
Yes. And let's people just like writing in no sound, audio is muted, no sound. Guys, what happened? Sorry, guys. But let's take this first caller who it's got to be Kowalski from Nebraska. Kowalski from Nebraska calling in as promised to answer the question from yesterday.
Hey, what's going on? Yes, indeed, this is Kowalski, and the fact that you remembered my area code is somewhat concerning.
Well, I mean, yeah, you are a frequent caller, Kowalski. I'm not sure if you're aware of this.
I am not. I am definitely not aware of that. Hello, Nomi. Just
Hey, what's happening? How cold is it there? I feel like it's negative 40 in Nebraska right now. I do not want to be there at this time of year. Sorry.
55. It's about 20 degrees warmer than it's supposed to be, and it's not good because insects are waking up and some trees had been blooming, which is bad.
Oh my God.
That's not good.
And like farming, that's
it's going to be quick.
Okay. What was the question yesterday? I forgot.
Somebody wanted to know about cover crops, like what they are, I guess, or to explain them. So essentially, cover crops is something that people plant during the off season. Usually it's like rye, wheat, clover, or turnips. You do this to add biodiversity to the soil. It helps with soil erosion, either from rain runoff or wind. It provides a little bit of foliage for some wildlife and can sequester carbon into the soil. Even if we did all crop acres with it, it would only sequester about 3% of the nation's entire carbon output, which isn't nothing, but, it's not revolutionary. For the most part, it cannot be done across all soils just due to different farm practices, but where it's done, it's pretty beneficial. I've used it occasionally, and there are USDA programs that help pay for it. You get like $50 an acre to do it, which offsets most of your input costs, and it can reduce the amount of pesticides you need to use, herbicides. So overall, a pretty good program, but it does have diminishing returns after a while. But on the whole, it's actually a pretty good program. And thanks for those farm subsidies to pay for it.
Thanks, Kowalski. Have a good one.
All right. Have a happy holidays.
You too.
Enjoy the weather.
Yeah.
Hope you get to go swimming in the pool or something. Take advantage of this climate change.
True.
Pick some
Maybe we'll go to
tulips.
the river.
Later, Kowalski. Happy holidays. Happy Festivus. Happy pagan Festivus. Nightmare Blunt Rotation writes in, great minds think alike. Like it or leave it. This might be a little too punny for Matt. I have a feeling you're not a pun guy.
Yeah, not really big on puns.
Not really big on puns
Although
myself.
I did call myself Otto Matlek in junior high basketball camp. So.
That's kind of a good one. I just now I associate puns with white women's Instagram captions.
Oh. Really? I feel like the punny people are not the white women Instagram.
Really? That's all.
Yeah,
Every girl I went to high school with, fucking pun. All these girls I went to college with, so many puns. It's like the only way they know how to be funny in something. Anyway.
I like just posting vibes on my
right.
Instagram.
Kilo 6 never understood why Dems didn't pull a trick out of Bush's playbook and call the child payment a child tax refund. Let the Republicans vote against giving a tax give back. Well, I mean, the way that they called it a child tax credit was in and of itself terrible branding. Yours would be a step up, or they could just call it like basically child UBI, child
bucks.
payments, baby bucks.
Love that one. That's good. See, that's almost almost punny.
And
You're almost there.
And it could be Biden baby bucks in Build Back Better, and then we have a whole tongue twister.
Guys, it's like they're not able to do these things, or they don't really want to.
Yeah, I don't think it's the branding that's stopping them.
Yeah.
Imagine, oh, okay, it's a yeah, okay.
Right. Well, I mean, if you made it sound cool, North Dakota Llama says the CIA tried to censor Matt. Honestly.
Yeah.
That's why I had to come in, guys. You know, your official CIA consultant here had to come in and save the day.
Well, is it a coincidence that you joined after we had the tech right after our tech was fixed when you joined again? So
I can't wait to see Jimmy Dore break this down tomorrow.
Good point. Good point. Erica from Iowa, a COVID test at $20 to $25 is not affordable to someone making minimum wage. If you're only making $7.25 an hour, that test costs nearly half a day's worth of pay. It's shameful that these tests aren't free and readily available.
They are free and readily available. Where are you paying for a COVID test? They should be free and readily available.
Well, the at-home tests are the ones that are $20 to $25 that you can get a refund for, but only starting January 15th. The Biden administration now announced that they're going to mail out tests, etc. But again, these programs are delayed. This should have happened before the Christmas holiday, because a lot of people are going to be around others. It's just like, I mean, the incompetence.
But regardless, you can still go and get a test somewhere for free. I mean, yes, it's nice to have them at home. It is much, much easier that way. But
I'm not sure that's the case in every state.
But this in New York, like
it's a better program. Yeah, sorry.
In every state?
It's
like,
a federal,
I know. Yeah. I know. I mean, New York has testing all around, but it's at capacity at this point, right? Like,
I mean, I walked to work today, and the line was 40, 50 people.
And yeah, I think like I think like even testing, like I've heard in North Dakota, it's not bad. If you want to go get tested, but it's just like also this song and dance about when I went to get tested a few weeks ago. The thing about, and they finally just told me like, don't put your insurance. I did like go through the song and dance of putting my insurance down, but it is an obstacle, and I could see why somebody like they get into like the registration process and it starts asking for health insurance, and it's like, okay, no.
Well, I went to get a test after I had that scare. Just real quick story. It was a 3-hour line for a free one with my health insurance. Somebody was waiting, maybe 2 or 3 people in front of me, must have been waiting there for an hour and a half. Woman comes out to like do the, give us forms to fill out, and he doesn't have insurance, and she was like, okay, it's $150 out of pocket.
Where did she go? Because that's also not.
I don't want to reveal where I was.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Because you can go to a hospital, you can go to a doctor's office, you can go to CVS, you can go to all these different urgent care, and it should not be charged at all. And like, there are definitely people who are predatory and out there using this to make money, like without a doubt. But like, for instance, a few weeks ago, and also keep in mind, some of these tests are not measuring Omicron. Like 2 weeks ago, after Thanksgiving, I hosted Thanksgiving in my house. 2 people from Thanksgiving, including myself, woke up with a sore throat, all the things. I mean, I'm pretty sure I had Omicron. I went to the hospital in my neighborhood and they said, are you showing symptoms? I said, yes. And they said, we're not going to test you here. You have to go to the ER. And then I was like, I don't have time for the ER right now. Like, it was a long line. So then I went back and the doctor was like, well, at least at that stage, they didn't know all of the, they were still trying to figure out what the symptoms were for Omicron versus Delta. And they're like, it's not coming up in the tests as readily. And like what was showing up in the test, I don't know about now, was Delta. I don't think they've changed the test. So I'm assuming it's just like now they declare it by symptoms. And, at that time he said I didn't have it, but now like they've said the 5 most common symptoms are sore throat, sneezing, being lethargic, and 2 other things I can't remember, which was what it was. But like, so even all these tests right now that are happening, like in the lines, it's like, do you have Delta or do you have Omicron? Like, I think that's what they're trying to sort out. And if you're vaccinated, like, it went away in 2 days for me.
Right. I mean, if you have the ability to get a PCR test and you can find one that's for free, I know it's a hard process. That when it might be a very long wait. I don't know what it is state by state. I'm just mostly familiar with like the New York City process. Please do it, and see if that's possible.
Yeah,
but even then, it doesn't declare whether or not it's Omicron. So
well, we have no that's what's disgusting about part of like our contact tracing in this country is there's just like very, very little capacity. What were you saying, Matt? Sorry.
Well, there's just today there's a article in BuzzFeed News: frigid temperatures, hours in line, surprise expenses. Here's a look at the pre-holiday COVID testing mayhem, and this really just looks like we thought we had enough capacity with these sort of contractors, and they did work great when there wasn't a huge run on it. But it's flu season came, and that capacity just wasn't there.
Yeah. Also, someone wrote in that I must have been at a boutique place. It wasn't. I mean, again, this was, okay, hold on. Charlie Kirk, the Dolphin King. Emma, I don't know why not, but maybe reveal where the testing location was that charged $150 without insurance. I live in California and I went to CVS for my... I'm not going to reveal that because it might reveal where I live, which is why I don't want to say that. Rudy Duop on me. My village in upstate New York is voting tonight to either allow marijuana dispensaries or call a referendum, which is likely to result in no dispensaries in my rural conservative town. In the last board meeting, the trustees made it clear they're leaning towards a referendum to, quote, let the people decide. As a socialist, I'm genuinely happy to let the people decide what businesses open in my town, but the reasoning behind denying a dispensary is only fear. What's the best argument against this without betraying my own beliefs? I mean, I don't think that you need to be committed to ideologically opposing one process or another if you're more in favor of whatever the outcome is. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it compromises your beliefs in that way. If you're in a really conservative area, as you say, in a rural conservative town, and it's likely that it's going to get voted down via referendum, I mean, the better outcome is for there to be a marijuana dispensary. So I don't think that's inconsistent. If you're, if that's what you're worried about. Nightmare Blunt.
Jobs.
Yeah.
Just say jobs.
Jobs, that too. Nightmare Blunt Rotation said, cost isn't the only barrier. More than a handful of people I know ended up not getting a test because transportation was an obstacle. In some cases, the people they typically rely on weren't comfortable driving them in case they were sick. Mark O'Brien says PCR tests are not free with private insurance, and take-home tests aren't as well in the state of Texas.
I think this is a federal thing. I mean, we can double check it, but I remember reading about this fairly recently, and part of that is because also in Texas, so it's sort of like the care issue. I can only speak from a women's health perspective, but when there are fewer hospitals in rural areas where you're supposed to get that, or there isn't a CVS, or there isn't something that is a federal, there are federal mandates, and all you have in your community is the for-profit place, then that may be why people think there's only for-profit in an area. I don't know. I can't speak to Texas. Or
I mean, I think it depends on, it's probably incredibly hard to figure out where the free tests are. And if you just think that you can walk into any clinic and then you're like, okay, I've waited for 2 or 3 hours, say I have to get back to work and I need a test. I mean, that's where they get you. And that's where all these predatory things are. There are a ton of boutique services here in New York that advertise and hide the true costs of what they provide, which I avoid those places like the plague. I would rather honestly wait in line for 3 to 4 hours than give one of those places my money, to be honest with you. But let's do some clips, maybe, unless Matt, you want to talk about this first. Sure, I'll come up. All right, we're gonna do try number 2 with this story that Matt wanted to highlight, which I think is really important too. So.
A little bit, so if you have another...
I will read some more IMs. Fix the camera on preview before it goes live.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, so it doesn't do the swing. V says, damn, glad to hear Matt bringing back Ghost Ride in the Whip. Dank Huger says, that's a very crackerish take, Nomiki. That's a Hassan reference when you said that thing about streaming.
Yeah. I wasn't just talking about him, but,
Yeah.
And it's not like he just, I do kind of want to break this down for a little bit because a lot of people, I'm sure they do this with you guys too, they reach out and they're like, I want to start a media. Like, what should I do? And I'm like, well, it's to really, like, he didn't just like show up and have 1 million followers. He had a base. He has a team.
Yeah.
He had like a New York Times write-up. Like, that's not the normal.
But he built it really from, like, he wasn't doing Twitch at TYT. He built that really from scratch, and like he had a public platform from that too. I think that's good advice, like, for someone starting off. But in terms of consumption, it's like one of the least predatory ways that you can make money.
No. What I'm saying is he came in there with an audience. He came in with an audience. He had a deal with Twitch. He also has a management team. There's nothing against him, but I'm just trying to like break down. This is, I think, why I think these platforms are a little pyramid schemey sometimes, is because people think like you just show up and you build an audience overnight, and there's always like some sort of, mechanics behind the scenes that help you get to that level. And it's also not the early days of the internet where things could be built a little bit, I'm not gonna say easier, but like there were less barriers and less algorithmic like games being played, et cetera, et cetera.
It definitely is hard to like to build things from the ground up, and I know that like independent channels are I'm not a numbers person for this channel, but like I know of other people talking about how it's been a struggle. So
really bad the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Even people who have like names and recognition and email lists, and because I always hear people say, oh, I have an email list. I'm like, how big is it? I'm like, 10,000. I'm like, cool. Mine is like 300,000 at this point, and that doesn't make a difference. Like, it doesn't. Sorry, this is like very businessy, but.
No, this is important though. Like what's happening in attention for political media is that for the first time in half a decade since Trump ran in the primary, attention has gone down. Yeah. And we've been in a situation where like things just grew and grew if you had a level of exposure and just kept making and you see like a lot of people grew, and now it has really leveled off, and people are wondering what to do to
to brand oneself,
retain that growth that they had.
Maybe you'll become anti-vaxxer now.
Guilty as charged, right? Like, I mean, Left Reckoning isn't growing as much as it used to. And I know that other people are dealing with similar things like that. And it's just how you deal with it. I think that.
And when you started too, I mean, some people, like our show started not even 2 years ago. Yours started 1 year ago. If you started 10 years ago, you have a base of support and a cushion, and it, maybe the growth rate was a little bit different during those times, or you had spurts because of an election year or not. Bernie, of course, was a big boom for a lot of left when they'd already existed. But to start right now is very, 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 very hard. Like, it costs money to do these shows. Like, this is what I keep saying to people, like, whether it's buying a microphone or all this, if you add someone to your team, you need to be able to pay them. And like all this stuff is, there's obviously a political climate that can influence this, but there's also some like, shenanigans with the technology too.
Right. Well, Matt, we're going to try, well, I don't need to highlight again that we had some issues, but this is an important story.
Yeah, so there's a big story in Colorado right now. Rogel Aguilera Medeiros, this is from The Independent. Why truckers are rebelling over 110-year sentence for crash driver who killed 4. Oh, yeah. And this is and look, there's stuff going about no trucks in Colorado, like hashtags that are spreading on social media. It's unclear to me how widespread that is, if it's just a select number of truck drivers or what's exactly going on. But there is a petition that's got millions and millions of signatures to try to undo this. Who's the governor of Colorado now? Polis?
Yeah. Let's say Hickenlooper, but it's not.
Jared Polis, yeah.
Jared Polis, yeah.
Yeah, so like that, not right now, like just to skip to the end, Polis needs to pardon this guy, but just to give you the story. Truck driver, 25-year-old, moved here from Cuba, and his brakes went out, and there's verification that they were smoking, it looks like.
He was 23 at the time of this.
Driving a truck, yeah. For
smoking, the brakes were smoking.
Yeah, before this crash. So the brakes went out. He's driving in Colorado. A lot of elevation changes, difficult for trucks. He's a driver for Castellano 03 Trucking LLC. And the brakes went out, and he was going 85, It looks like, and it's unclear to me, like what, at what point, like the brakes went out and you realize that and that sort of thing. It's unclear to me, but by all accounts, it looks to me like an accident, and 4 people died. He was charged with a number of charges, just a huge litany of them. Just to go over a few of them. In October, he was found guilty of 27 criminal charges, including 4 counts of vehicular homicide, 6 counts of first-degree assault, 10 counts of attempt to commit assault in the first-degree extreme indifference, 2 counts of vehicular assault reckless, 1 count of reckless driving, and 4 counts of careless driving causing death. Again, this because he was behind the wheel of a semi whose tires went out. And he refused to take the plea bargain. Oh, sorry, my headphones still.
I can't stand them.
And causing a little bit of problems. The plea bargain, he didn't take the plea bargain, and so this prosecutor hit him with all these charges. And we should just note, because
what a prosecutor, by the way, just representing the government to the fullest extent.
It's a progressive prosecutor, Alexis King.
Wow.
She was involved, is my understanding, in restorative justice sort of clinics before she was.
Are you serious?
And she said, I'm sorry that he didn't take the plea bargain, but this is what we had to do because, he was recklessly in charge of this truck.
I'm pretty sure you don't get to call yourself like a progressive prosecutor anymore after this case. I don't know.
Yeah.
This isn't exactly restorative justice.
No.
One thing that okay, so he was going 85. You're going downhill, right? And you're a semi, and you're going downhill and your brakes go out. You're going to accelerate, number 1. Number 2, my uncle's a truck driver, and it's a big thing because they have so much training that they have to go through. It is an extremely regulated space, from what I understand. Like, I mean, he's taught me tricks of driving, like, because, things that you wouldn't even know, like when to accelerate and not pump your brakes as you're going downhill, because the semi can actually like start to swerve and throw. So it's kind of the opposite reaction of what you're thinking. Like when you're speeding down, you're actually not supposed to pump your brakes. Yeah. So, I mean, it's just, I'm curious, like, do they have trucking experts? Like, this is.
Yeah, it's unclear, but we do have this thread from one of the jurors, if you can put that up, Bradley. And this is, I think, we'll look at this on a couple of levels. There's one level of the individual, Rogel Aguilar Medeiros, but here's one of the jurors. I'm going to write something.
Wait, hang on. Okay, this is after he was prosecuted.
This is after he was charged, with sentenced to 110 consecutive years. She writes, "I'm going to write something longer about this, but I just have to say this right now. 110 years is unjust. I feel sick with how unjust this is. I don't feel like I can say much right now because my brain keeps stuttering out this, but my brain will come back online at some point. I was on the jury in this case, and if I had known this was the mandatory minimum for a kid who made some really bad decisions at exactly the wrong time, I would absolutely have engaged in jury nullification." You should know what jury nullification is, so you can be if you
find yourself in this position, you have this. Yeah.
You do not need a reason to say not guilty. Mm-hmm. That's the basic point of this, right? If you think that this is going to be unjust, say it's for a drug charge, for instance, like some possession kit, you can just say not guilty, even if all the evidence suggests that this is actually word for word a crime. You can just say not guilty. You don't have to explain that to anybody. And we need more awareness of that, so people don't have. I mean, not that the worst thing on this about this whole situation is the consciousnesses of the jurors, but this is a juror, and she said she doesn't want sympathy. She just wants people to know what they can do in this situation if they're in it again.
4.3 million signatures on a change.org petition asking for clemency to be granted. And the petition also talks about how he had no criminal history, passed all of his drug and alcohol tests, and complied with every single request by case investigators and the courts. He apologized to the victim's family, and I'm sure you're getting to this, Matt, at some point, but the petition is also asking for the trucking company to be held liable because that's where it's got to go.
That's the thing. So, like, the judge himself says, if I had discretion, it would not be my sentence. So, we're at.
So the 110, then that was the prosecutor recommended 110 years, and the jury did not know that?
Those are the mandatory minimums.
Those are the mandatory. Okay, got it.
Yes, exactly.
For the 27 charges that the prosecutor, though, did level against him because of the results of this.
Yeah, and look,
why doesn't the jury know the mandatory minimums? Sorry, Matt.
I'm not sure if I haven't been on a jury, but I imagine they don't like to say that.
Yeah.
Right? Because they want to see not guilty or guilty regardless of that fact, right?
And maybe it was a failure of his lawyer.
I mean, yeah, the juror clearly didn't know it. But yeah, like that's the thing is like, so, okay, maybe there should be some time served here. Like you have to have some kind of accountability of the individual drivers. Again, this is not where I would start this, right? I would look at the company, but let's just deal with the individual level because this is what this society likes to do. Say a bad thing happened, let's throw this guy in prison for 110 years. Like, yeah, like truckers should be, and this again goes back to the company, right? Like truckers themselves should be empowered enough and required actually to make sure that the brakes and everything is in working order. So I could see like some minor like 6 month, like people died. Like I understand the need for accountability, but 110 years, nobody, even the judge himself is expecting that. But yes, the trucking company, right? Like apparently they're, and we need to look into more of this, but there's previous instances of not following this sort of like maintenance or checks. And yeah, you cannot, and this is, and wider than the truck company, this is what we decide to do in the context of an infrastructure package, where we decide we're going to rely on trucking. And look, trucking is a noble profession, but it's dangerous. I don't like sharing the road with truckers personally.
Yeah.
Like, and like, this is frankly going to happen a certain number of times when this is how we move things to and from places. So yeah, like the company needs it. And again, as people who, I think there is value in pursuing progressive prosecutors and DAs, like Alexis King here, but like we also have to be real about the limitations of that. Alexis King, I looked into her a little bit. She got rid of a whole bunch of the former people in the prosecutor's office, kind of cleaned house a little bit, and it's like, oh, here's a progressive
reformer.
Right? But once you start doing that, then you're bought in, and then you have to do things like this, which are going to make sure that you can keep your new system running, right? And we're sentencing a kid that again was put behind a semi, 23 years old, by Castellanos trucking company, and now he individually is the only person that's going to face any kind of accountability for it.
There was something in that thread where she was like, he made some bad decisions. There's nothing so far that I've heard other than maybe I don't know if there was evidence that he didn't check the brakes as in a normal procedure or something, but like what bad decisions? You accelerate when you're going downhill, the brakes were, I don't understand, like what would those bad decisions be?
Well, the emphases are that the prosecution says is there was a couple places he could have turned off that are basically made for that area, and the defense said that, well, he didn't know the brakes were out by that point, right? And so maybe, and that's the thing is like, could he have been speeding that caused this sort of thing too, a little bit, that you're going 85 and then you realize your brakes are out. You did something wrong. The brakes are still the ultimate problem, right? But you were speeding and it caused this accident. So,
or you were going downhill and you weren't speeding, because that's
also true.
Downhill.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I'm unclear if this was actually going downhill or he was just previously like going up and down hills and that's when the brakes went out, for instance, right? But either way, 110 years is ridiculous for an accident. And
also, I mean, like now to bring it back to where you opened about how there are or there's calls for no more trucking in Colorado, like we're in a conversation about infrastructure and how like I want railways expanded to like many degrees because we can kind of eliminate some of these accidents and have cargo be transported in a more effective way, especially in areas like Colorado, which is a mountainous region. And the idea that these trucks are like going to be safe on these roads, they're going up and down, that's ludicrous. And it's just that there needs to be a different approach.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like this is, and like I don't know, I'm just thinking of myself as a 23-year-old being in charge of an entire semi-truck. Like
even if you're trained, you just don't have the experience still. Like,
yeah, man, it's and to just like throw him in prison for 110 years.
His life's over.
Yeah, it's over. Yeah. And put in a position where, like, you know, I don't know. It's really disgusting. And, you know, we talk about all these truckers, and I don't think it is as widespread as it looks, the no trucks in Colorado. I think trucks are still going to Colorado. But if something like that could happen, it would change these mandatory minimum laws and a lot of this stuff a lot faster than any sort of elected progressive DA would, I think. And that's, I mean, hopefully, like, that consciousness is starting to raise a little bit, because truckers do have a lot of power, and this is absolute bullshit.
Especially at this moment with the supply chain issues, like this is when you really need them.
Yeah,
I just love how like we go after him more than we go after a cop who actually murders somebody. Like, there's no protection of truckers, but it's a complete brotherly like white supremacist association with cops.
Yeah, and and again, like no legal from the state focus on the trucking company itself, because we know that the courts are actually there to serve those kind of companies. America, folks.
And that was your
downer of the day.
Your lecture.
Oh, good
I stole that from an IMer. Let's see if we have any responses to this. David says you can't even rent a fucking car at 23. Yeah, you got to wait until you're 25.
That's true, right? Yeah.
Yep. Cosmo Possum. I thought I read somewhere that the driver didn't use his engine braking / Jake braking, uses the engine exhaust to slow down the drive shaft, and instead tried his wheel brakes, which cannot handle that kind of stress, weight, speed, and thus failed. Right, again, though, like, no matter how you're spinning it, this is not the sufficient fact pattern for 110 years.
Yeah, why isn't the trucking company making sure that their drivers know all this stuff?
Yeah.
Right.
I think they should.
They probably are legally required to.
Yeah.
All right, let's take another call.
If I liked my uncle, I'd ask him to call in, but he's also a born-again Christian, so not really the show for him.
Gotcha. Yeah. All right, we're gonna take another call, then we'll get to some clips. Calling from an 847 number. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep. Who's this? Yep.
If it's me, it's Phil from the Chicago suburbs.
Hi, Phil from the Chicago suburbs. It is you.
Hi. So first, you probably won't remember this anymore, but I'm still recovering from Emma's hilarious joke about that's how they recorded in utero.
I don't even remember what that. I don't even.
It was in connection with the idea that you put an amplifier next to a zygote or whatever to simulate a heartbeat sound. And you said
right, yeah.
That is I will say that is a pretty amazing joke by me.
Wait, tell it again. I don't know it.
In Utero is a Nirvana album, and
right.
this,
got it. Okay, I didn't know the premise of everything.
But I mean, Phil, do you have any more compliments for me, or do you have anything else you want to share?
I have one for the end, but I wanted to say I'm a vegan, and I wanted to make an anti-vegan point.
Okay.
Welcome.
You're a self-hating vegan.
You've raised some good points about soft anti-vegan points in the past. There needs to be a just transition. There's individual responsibility as a distraction. You have to build consent for these things over time. But I also wanted to say, I'm a vegan for ethical reasons, but if I was a vegan for only environmental reasons, I don't think it would make sense. I think this is a widely held view, but I haven't heard it made explicit in the extensive Veganism Chronicles on the show, which is that, probably the most environmentally efficient way to make food is probably more vegan than we are now, but not 100%, right? Because there's all kinds of efficiencies by incorporating animals into your food production process, right? With fish poop and whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, if I can, as somebody who doesn't eat meat, and I think that this individual argument in the vegan case does not necessarily hold up because it's essentially a boycott. Like, if we can be for boycotts, I mean, there absolutely is a connection between consumption and how many animals are bred. I mean, there's a direct correlation in terms of climate and ethical reasons. So I don't always buy the individualism, like your individual, not eating meat is going to affect climate change. It's part of an ecosystem. It's not going to end oil and gas. Does that make?
Yeah, and I agree. I think you're saying it's still good to be vegan, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not vegan anymore.
I agree. It's still good, and I'm attempting to, cut back on my, I have definitely cut back on my meat consumption for sure. But like again, I think your point is like more systemic as opposed to like the focus on the individual is what is frustrating.
Yeah, but also just comparing systems. If we could choose the system outcome that we wanted, I'm just trying to be honest about my veganism and say 100% vegan is probably not the best for the planet. It seems to me. Like mostly vegan is probably best for the planet because you get efficiencies from having animals in your process.
Yeah. I mean, then it becomes like...
And they can use marginal land. You can't grow land on every grazing area. I'm sorry. That's weird.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit with Kowalski, like ranching and like land use. I think you're right. I think ideally, if we could use the one world communist government to enforce diets, I think you're probably right that that is the way that we should go. And I also say, like,
I force me to eat 10% meat, and you'll force everyone else to eat less. Like, that would be net benefit to my vegan agenda.
I like it. Yeah. Look, hey, everyone's gonna have to sacrifice.
That's right. Okay, I've got one more compliment for Emma.
Oh man, wow. I mean,
just good job on Ben Burgess. Give them an argument last night.
Thank you.
It doesn't mean I have no life. I was actually, listening to it while I was volunteering and working out at the same time with my cool friends who are teaching me Spanish. I'm not just in my basement.
Working out?
Damn.
You guys the entire time.
Phil.
Oh yeah, I'm not just in my basement the whole time, listening to YouTube for everything.
Yeah, I mean, totally. It like wink, wink. I don't just like go home and watch 2 different screens of sports every night, or sometimes, or reality television. I totally have a life. Thanks so much, Phil.
Thanks.
Have a good one. Yeah, I was on Ben Burgess's show last night. If people want to check it out, give them an argument. We talked about a few things, including Ben Shapiro, which I mentioned earlier, Josh Hawley, and others. Oh, and Jordan Peterson. Always fun.
Speaking of meat.
Yeah, exactly. Too much meat in that man's
not enough fatty acid in his brain.
Right. All right, let's do a clip here. Oh man. Well, let's play this Kyle Rittenhouse situation.
This is so horrible. This is so depressing.
Yeah, Kyle Rittenhouse, as predicted, is now the right-wing martyr that they so desire. He's basically like becoming their celebrity, and for people like Steven Crowder, that's why Steven Crowder's asking him if he likes boobs or not, because he's living this conservative dream where he gets to wield his gun and act and kill people and act like a big diehard character or vigilante or Wild Wild West sharpshooter.
Like he just came home from World War II.
Yeah, and then get all the girls. And so, like, this is how Kyle Rittenhouse was received, and why the lauding of him is so dangerous, because it's going to inspire more Kyle Rittenhouses. He was he appeared at the Turning Point USA America Fest conference in Arizona.
And it's like it's the least creative name ever. America Fest.
I know. It's like a South Park parody. Here he is.
That's your job for the day.
Right. I know.
Call it America Fest. All right, let's go.
Later. Here he is taking the stage.
Get loud for Kyle.
Oh my god, this is so
I'm to the Radiohead show.
Oh my god.
Kyle Rittenhouse, shooting guard.
Weighing in at 185.
Lucky 17-year-old. Oh my god. No, I can't. This is so triggering.
What's up, bro? This is the most famous TikToker in America. 4 doors, more whores. He's in there.
Oh, well,
4 doors, more whores? What is that?
I guess. I just it felt like a wrestling intro basically, and Kyle Rittenhouse was just gonna come out on stage with a tattered American flag cape and just shoot his gun into the air multiple times. Yeah. I mean,
so this is so crazy because there are these people in the pseudo left and people who are being influenced by the pseudo left who are like, well, he really wasn't his argument was, and this is what you sign up for. Like when you make that argument, when you think that he made the proper legal argument, you are basically empowering this. And this is different. I really like there's some stuff that's happening right now in legitimate, I'm saying that as a joke, like Fox News world that used to be much more there were certain things that were even off limits for Fox News and only Tucker would say it. Now it's happening everywhere. And it's the deification of Kyle Rittenhouse. This is different. I don't know if people really understand. This is not normal right-wing craziness. This is on another level. He's a murderer. We know it. Either way, he's not a cop. He's not a war hero. you know, this is a little boy that they want to duplicate. And so they're putting that up as like an icon.
Yeah.
That everyone will duplicate that.
Exactly.
Raise your child to be like Kyle.
And I've said this before too. I mean, I'm a soft lefty. I'm like not past the point where I think he could have some remorse and be rehabilitated as a person if the response to him wasn't, everything you did in this situation was awesome. In fact, you're a rock star and we're going to treat you as such. And you're going to be on news every night. And as Crowder says, you're going to get all the girls with the tits and the butt. Love it. Like, I mean, like, that's exactly like how they're, I almost regret like reenacting that clip right there. But like, that's how they're treating him. He is now, I'm sure, incredibly happy that he murdered those two people because it's given him this station in life.
Yeah, I mean, he's a symbol that you can use violence against your political opponents. And that's what, and I agree with Nomi, and that can't be stressed enough, that all the folks that were getting involved in dipping their toe in and being seen just in the vicinity of Kyle Rittenhouse to say that it's good that he got off, I think they are fascist enablers, absolutely, to a man. This is fascism. I mean, like, this is like, he's the perfect kind of fascist warrior that this movement wants. And like, we're talking about the normalization of political violence. I mean, January 6th, the anniversary is coming up of that. And Kyle Rittenhouse is like of that same vein. So,
and they're teaching, this is really important because it's not just a thing. This is now, when we say icon, it's like an icon to deify. They're teaching little boys around the country and parents around the country to it's okay to be this way. There are absolutely no ramifications for your actions, white boy causing them up, just like there are going to be no ramifications for the boys who stormed the Capitol and their little, you know, girlfriend accomplices. I know what I'm saying here. I'm not like, but basically it's like, these are boys, these are unruly boys that grow up with no consequences, just like you have egomaniacal CEOs who grow up with no consequences or regulations. And this is what they're trying to, like, this is the narrative they want to build in America.
Yeah.
Consequences are laws and laws are bad. We don't like laws because we don't like taxes and we don't like to be caught doing really bad things.
I just don't know how new it is, though. Like, I mean, I guess it is a different dynamic in the way that, like, you know, it's being presented. But we had George Zimmerman before him, and we had countless lynchings that were never documented on camera before that. Like, this kind of vigilantism has been deified for a while, or elevated for a while on the right. I guess it's just now there's every medium to do it on.
But he's not doing it. It's not like George Zimmerman was like hustling afterwards. Like, he was becoming well, he was a huckster, but like, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like Fox News was like, and now our new Fox News contributor is George Zimmerman. This is like, they're building an empire around him. Like, he is.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's going to be interesting to see what happens when the attention premium that comes with having Kyle Rittenhouse on your show starts dissipating, because people aren't going to tune in forever for this kid. He's going to have to do something else, I think, because I think people do forget this stuff. And what's that going to be for? And like
he's going to auction that gun.
Totally effed. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like, the other thing I want to say about all the sort of Substacker contrarians that were supporting the freedom of Kyle Rittenhouse, what they are supporting is also a revision of the narrative of the protests that happened the year before. And that, like, and occasionally, like, I'll say Glenn Greenwald will have some guest writer say progressive prosecutors have gone so crazy and they're letting everybody out, and that's why crimes start rising in Philly. But typically they don't have quite as much boldness to come out and say that that's what they think about those protests. But that's what they think about those protests. They think the left got out of control and that they need to be put in place with force. That's what they are buying. That's what Kyle Rittenhouse represents. And I'll just say that's not what my takeaway from that summer was. It's that the police are a unlawful and mendacious killing machine with very little accountability. And they'll have the media, including the mainstream media and the so-called independent tech investor adjacent media, supporting them in it.
And it's interesting that that's their takeaway too, right? Like, that's when you can tell that the violence inflicted by police on certain segments of our population is not something that motivates that kind of writer or that kind of thinker. And like,
No.
okay, you got to think, what are the blind spots there? And as Nomi started off saying, this is what they aided and abetted, and they got to make their own. They got to live with it.
Yeah, you show up a year later and you focus on all the damage from the community that hasn't been fixed by, again, the...
And then talk about government overreach.
Yeah, and then say, like, that's the problem, is that nobody cares about these people. It's like, actually, like, it starts with they're killed, and then, of course, people get upset about that. That happens, again, everywhere. It's not like this... I was in London when the Tottenham riots happened. Somebody was killed, and, like, I'm sorry, this is just what happens when police just murder people. And I think it's a healthy response. I'm sorry. Like, I think it could have been channeled in better ways, of course. But, like, that you're going to go and support Kyle fucking Rittenhouse, the kid who represents the vigilante response to that stuff, is, I think it's fascist.
Well, and what's interesting also is, like, okay, so Glenn Greenwald and the Substackers, whatever this tribe of folks is, you know, he's an attorney who represented white supremacist boys under free speech because he believes in free speech absolutism. Well, okay, on that premise that you believe in free speech absolutism, I'm very curious why you don't spend an ounce of your energy defending the protesters who showed up in the streets or anybody who is not in this very unique category on free speech. We all have, you know, why don't you talk about the left being censored on the internet? Why don't you talk about, you know, the protesters not being able to exercise their right to free speech without being murdered? Like, I'm very curious.
And I forget, what's the guy's name who was arrested for the Antifa guy for wanting to counter the Jan 6 stuff? Because basically he saw what everybody else was seeing, that there was going to be a fascist attack.
I don't remember.
And I wish, oh gosh.
Barlow, the guy from Florida.
Is it Barlow?
I get his full name.
Right, yeah, but like, yeah, they never mention that because they're appealing to a right-wing audience.
Yeah. Here are some of the IMs. Samiki says, watch the WAPO video on Kenosha. The kid was absolutely looking for action.
Yeah, of course. Why do you go there with a gun?
Yeah. Between the 101 and the 5 says, fascism is terrorism coming home to roost. Thanks, George W. Sam Soft-Collared Shtick says, fully vaxxed kids getting mild symptoms. I know. I mean, they're a bit disappointed in the immune response of children with some of these shots.
Oh, on that note, New York, this was just announced that New York City is expanding the COVID testing sites by the end of the week.
It's been the mobile. We've fleshed this out a good amount, but like it's been nuts. I've never seen it like this. So Ilon Omar says, so how many more people will Rittenhouse have killed through COVID infection with all those people at that Turning Point USA conference? Daniel
Baker was the anarchist.
Will from Indiana says, Emma, thanks to you, and others endless tweeting about Succession. It's not endless. As well as almost all my mom's family praising it. I watched the first 2 episodes of season 1 last night and we'll be watching it throughout winter break. I will say, if anybody wants to get into Succession, it doesn't really get good until the back half of season 1. And season 2 is one of the 5 best television seasons I've ever seen in my life.
I'm on episode 10. I just like...
Of season 1?
Of season 1. Like
season 1 is good. Season 2 is incredible. So I'm just like, this is my plea to you to see it through for sure. Dr. Nick says, what do you guys think the likelihood of events like concerts of the ball drop go on? I could not give 2 shits about the ball dropping.
They canceled London already.
Oh, really?
Today.
Well, I mean, it's outdoors. I don't really see an issue with that, but I think it's the larger issue is just like the adjacent businesses being overcrowded.
It'd be an interesting test. Like if truly COVID doesn't pass in the ball drop of Times Square, then I guess we really know it doesn't cross outside, but we'll see, I guess.
Well, the thorny question in the NFL right now is if to let asymptomatic COVID positive players play, which sounds crazy, but at the same time, there's been 0 evidence of transmission outside. I don't know.
Right.
And if everybody's vaxxed, I don't know. Yeah.
Right.
Which you don't know that necessarily.
And then you also like, you are also supposed to set even if in that rarefied situation it works, like you're also supposed to be setting an example for your community. And I don't know if the NFL wants to go there.
I think a lot more of this is about setting an example because like, we were operating inside like a year ago without vaccines, just with masks on. So we're all vaccinated, even if we do get, I mean, not for anybody who's vaccinated going inside in New York, even if you do get it, the symptoms are obviously much, much, much more mild. But why don't we just go back to wearing masks inside? This is what I'm really confused about. Like in Europe, I know in some places in Europe, they're using a whole grading system. So you can only enter if you are double vaccinated and boosted and wearing a mask. But like, if you only have one vaccine, you can't go to certain things. If you have no vaccine, you're just like basically banished from society.
Right.
So, yeah.
Mansion Fox Dogs writes in, I'd rather blow my brains out than watch the insufferable Fox played on Succession. You know, that means you're way morally superior to me. Congratulations. It's also interesting. It's also a satire. So like there's a lot to whatever, but it's just like, you're also probably better than me if you don't watch sports, I'm sure. Colin from SC says, hey gang, slightly out of the box, but are you guys aware of the Gillibrand amendment in the defense bill that just passed Senate and Congress? The amendment will establish an office to publicly study and disseminate information through Congress and scientific communities about unidentified aerial phenomenons. So are we on the cusp of Biden or Harris formally declaring that there's definitively an extraterrestrial presence on Earth? I don't think so. If there really is, how could that affect global geopolitics? And does the our crew really believe this is a phenomenon? I mean, I think
it's bullshit.
Yeah, I heard him sigh quite loudly.
This in the same week that we just decided we're going to keep Jackie Kennedy's interviews after the assassination of JFK under lock and key until 2039. But let's talk about UFOs.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
it's wag the dog. It's like the wag the dog theory. Right.
Yeah, and then it's always like, oh, the Pentagon needs more money to study this, and like, I just think I'm very cynical. And look, I think Corey Pine, who works on Majority Report here with us, on the AM or the morning blog, AM Quickie, right? Like he has a more open take to this UFO stuff than I do, and if you want something more than I'm giving, go to him. But my take is this is all lies from the Pentagon about weird videos that they can say this might be a UFO, but it's probably just a weather balloon or something like that.
But that's what's annoying about the conspiracy theorizing, right? Like it never goes back to, oh, actually these are probably experiments by governments that don't want you to know what they're doing and like testing this shit on.
Yeah, or showing this stuff off like they did with the stealth bombers and stuff like that. Like, ooh, look at what is that in the sky? Is it a UFO? No, it's this thing we made to get around radar.
Or what they're like is it's Russia. They're going to be like, oh, guess what, guys? It wasn't a UFO. It was actually Russia, and this is why we need to invest more in space.
China now. Yeah. China now.
I mean, imagine if you're in a great power conflict and you don't even know who the great power is. You better spend billions and billions of dollars on more research.
Space lasers.
Comrade Daniel says, need Charlemagne to pressure Kamala on UFOs. And Mansion Fox Dogs wrote in and says, I watch more sports than you, Emma, and play them. All right, sorry if I got thorny with you, Mr. Anti-Succession, but I don't
understand why he's against it. Succession's fine. I love these kinds of shows because
they're rich people, so it's not fun to watch them.
Well, it's not about rich people. It's about power and how power is structured in our society. And it comes down to like some really stupid people and like family fights. And then you just sit there and you say, oh my God, anytime this is how I debunk these like big government conspiracies, like they're all after us. It's like, once you watch a documentary on Steve Bannon, once you watch a documentary on Roger Stone or Succession, you're like, no, they're just stupid humans who somehow gathered power in really weird ways, fighting over stupid human things with absolutely no accountability. And like, if you see power structures that way as stupid humans with little accountability, it doesn't seem such a, like they have absolute control over you.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, do you watch the Sopranos? Like,
yeah.
Pretty sure. Do you watch Breaking Bad? Like the anti-hero protagonists in those shows, not exactly great people, but you can still enjoy watching it. Rob from yeah.
My understanding of Succession is that it's like it's a show about the depravity of the ruling class and the pettiness of it, which like I don't watch it because I don't get around to watching a lot of TV. I did just binge.
I'm just reading all day, guys. Like I'm just a reader.
Hey, look, I go between my Broadway HD and watching Shakespeare, and then also Selling Tampa on Netflix. So and then might watch some basketball. But
you watch Selling Tampa on Netflix?
I watched it all. Yeah.
What?
That sounds fun.
I also watched Sunset.
I should watch.
Sunset's great.
Selling Sunset's good.
There's I like Selling Tampa more. There's a lot of good labor stuff in Selling Tampa.
I love it. That's the hook, guys. There's a lot of good labor stuff.
All right, let's take this one call.
Sound like a lot of fun, Matt.
Let's take this call here. Calling from a 917 number. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
This is Alex in New York.
Alex in New York. Good to hear from you, Alex.
Hey.
Hey.
So I do have a matchup for you guys.
Okay.
I wanted to ask about television shows.
We just covered that.
Right-wing television shows.
There.
Because I was watching one of your clips the other day, and I saw an ad for a movie called "Suing the Devil" from the Epoch Times.
Okay.
Oh, here we go.
Ben Shapiro has that school shooter movie that he made with Thomas Jane. Every time I see Yellowstone trending on Twitter, it's always because the Daily Caller is retweeting it and talking about it. What is this? And what do you think they're trying to do, if anything?
I mean, Yellowstone, I think, is like just a normal television show that kind of trends right wing, right? I mean, it's like about Western cowboys and
it seems
pretty
to be
anti-indigenous.
Land disputes, and I haven't watched it, but I can imagine there's probably not a great representation of indigenous folks in there.
Right. So I don't know. I think that's different than like the Epoch Times funding some
propaganda.
Like some low budget shit.
Look, what they're doing with Yellowstone is just that it's a popular show, and it's a lot easier for the right wing to talk about culture than it is to talk about how you should be serving your boss for less money.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and that's why that they always talk about Dr. Seuss or Yellowstone or anything like that. And frankly, why occasionally you might see like left wing people do that too. It's funnier to talk about sports sometimes than it is to talk about Joe Biden, right? And that you can definitely see that on the right wing.
I also think, I mean, a lot of these companies. No, but there's something true that you're saying here. You know, a lot of the companies do have conservative, like Disney, Discovery is like buying up all these. Discovery is very conservative, and they're buying up a lot of different media platforms right now and consolidating under that. So there is, like, in some cases, an agenda for sure. I mean, the Hallmark Channel. It's like my mom watches all these Christmas movies. I'm like, oh my God, it's like white supremacy channel. Like, what is this? So.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. It reminds me of the Hallmark Channel, or a couple years ago when they made that movie about the abortion doctor, Gosnell, and then just like all, the God is real, God is not dead. All these movies, they used to be sort of in the wheelhouse of like just Christians making movies for themselves. And of course they have a lot of money because it's the church. But now it seems to be broadly more just conservative pundits who are clearly failed entertainers trying to make movies.
Well, you could be like Bannon, where you were an actual filmmaker and then you moved into conservative entertainment or organizing, I guess. I have like I mentioned, I have two family members, an aunt and uncle that are sister and brother that are born again Christian. And when I was a kid, this is really fun, and my dad's an atheist. They used to send me all of the like Christian movies, like the Christmas movies. That's like all they could give me as a gift. But now they're like mainstreamed. And it was always the guy from Full House, the sister from Full House, Candace Cameron, and Kirk Cameron. That was the one who always led them. They have like a whole.
Are they related?
Yeah, they're brother and sister.
Oh my God! Of course.
Yeah.
All right, what's our matchup?
Let me give you,
Alex.
Your matchup is, and I've been waiting for Nomiki to be on to give you this one.
Oh.
Okay.
Joy Reid versus Karen Finney. And Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson.
Okay, hold on. Let me think about this.
What are we doing with this?
Google Karen Finney. This is a like celebrity death match. So they're
the DNC spokesperson.
Sam Harris versus Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, let's start with that one because I know who they are. Sam Harris, I think.
Why?
Because Jordan Peterson is a frail man.
I was like, he does not have the proper.
They actually have to fight. It's not like
exactly.
a debate.
This is physical combat, not ideas, but battle strength and bone and sinew.
Yeah.
And I think Sam Harris has that easy. I think he's younger than Peterson. I think he hasn't been doing weird sort of like all meat diets that shock his system into like him needing to go to Russia for medical attention. So I think Sam Harris absolutely dominates, and that's even without any sort of like Eastern meditation inspired Tai Chi sort of martial art. Do you guys have an opinion on the other one?
Yeah, I think Karen Finney. She's a very tall woman.
She is tall.
She's serious, and she's not like Joy Reid. Like you can tell a lot by how somebody is as a fighter by their Twitter.
Karen Finney's 5'9". Yeah.
She feels, and she's in heels. She's very tall too. But Joy Reid is like, she's just kind of like once she gets called out, I feel like when somebody punches her, she'll like go in the corner and just block you. She'll be like, whatever.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Karen Finney too.
Yeah, this is the first I've heard of Karen Finney, but she looks tough. So
That's a very. And why did you pick Karen Finney? That's a very like insidery
Because
choice
she was
there.
on CNN. I've been holding this one for a year. It was during the primaries, and she was talking about body language.
Oh, Karen was okay.
Well, she's gonna get some body language from Joy Reid in the Celebrity Death Match.
Oh, I wanna like assess that.
Appreciate it, Alex.
Holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays, Alex.
Have a good one. Yeah.
Stay healthy.
Karen Finney, my 5'9". Well, I think I'm like in between 5'8" and 5'9".
Are you really?
Yeah. I have
She's-
bad posture though.
She's very like she's just you're still petite, like you're very petite 5'9". You're like basically a supermodel, Emma. Okay, let's just be real.
That's so nice.
I was like, I eat cashews all day long.
Well, I mean, that's really sweet of you because I was like, Jesus Christ, I've got like I'm near a really great new bagel place and it's really hard to resist every morning getting one.
When I lived on the Lower East Side, I was across from Kosar's and it was on the way to the subway and the donut plant and it was like morning the bagel and I have gluten issues. Donut for evening.
Bagels, there's a reason people like them. All right, let's. Do you want to talk a little bit about your latest Fox appearance, Nomi?
Yeah, I had 2 in 2 days, and it's been quite a fun Twitter situation the last few days. Yeah, okay. Well, let's talk about. I had an abortion argument. We can talk about that later, or another day, or someone can go look it up if you want to. But that was. I put like the abortion pills on camera during that fight with Leela Rose, who's like a real kook. She's a kook. But this one is Dan Bongino called me up and he's like, love having you on because Democrats don't like to come on my show. And I'm like, sounds great. Let's do it. Popular
I'm
Facebook
down.
guy.
If you're ever not available, give him my number.
I will. And they send you a van. It's really fun because like they don't want you in studio anymore because Fox News is.
You told us last time. Yeah. So you were in the van once again.
Van again. There's a little bit of a delay, but we talked about climate change. And I was like, are we really doing this? This is important because I've been doing Fox and CNN for 12 years, right? Like for a long time. Why I ask people to pay attention to the right wing, like with obviously don't get brainwashed by them, is because unlike the online right, Fox News did not do a lot of aggressive climate change denial. They would have people on who would be deniers. They would frame topics of deregulation or what caused climate change. But I really can't think of an instance, maybe Tucker's gone down that path lately, but I can't think of an instance where they actually had a host full out deny. And part of that is also just because James Murdoch's wife is a climate change activist who runs the Clinton Foundation's climate change, organization, or did at least before.
Oh boy, that's
bad.
Yeah, that's not a line in Succession, is it? So anyways, so let's just, my responses or whatever, but like, I think it's really important to hear what he says and pay attention to who he cites and what's cited on screen. Because this is the art of insane propaganda that like, I think we all need to understand what we're dealing with now versus before.
Nomiki Kuntz. Nomiki, thanks for joining me again. I appreciate it. Pretty simple question up front. If hurricanes are getting worse and storms and are getting more extreme, then why aren't hurricanes and storms getting more extreme? There's no data to back that up.
Well, there is data to back that up. Over the last 1,300 years, the last 50 have been the warmest on record, every year being warmer than previous. So when the oceans get warmer, you have more hurricanes, which is also factual. We've had more hurricanes this year than ever before. And we've had stronger storms that are outside the normal path. there is a consensus of scientists, world leaders. There's a consensus of corporate leaders. Corporate leaders are now on the same page because they're realizing that they're losing money. So there is a global consensus about climate change, and there's a local consensus. People know. They know. Today was 61 degrees, the hottest day ever recorded in history on this day in New York City alone. People understand how climate works now. We have to move past that because it's costing people's lives, their homes, their businesses, their insurance costs are going up. It's really hurting individuals across the board.
Well, Nomiki, if what you just said was accurate, which it isn't, then why is the National Hurricane Center data indicating that hurricane impacts of the United States are at an all-time low? You know, we went more than a decade without a major hurricane. That was the longest such period in recorded history. You can see the quote right there from the National Hurricane Center. So what consensus? I think you're talking about the Nomiki consensus.
Okay. The National Hurricane Center, it says the Heartland Institute.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's... did he say the period between 2005 and 20... What is that?
So he said in the last 10 years. So then I respond to it. But this is also from the Heartland Institute, which when we're done, I'll tell you what that is. I mean, we all know it's conservative, but yeah, go ahead.
Let's hear what his purported explanation
So that's a Heartland Institute interpretation of NHC data, just to be clear.
Right. Pretty sure there were some insane hurricanes during that time period, including one that impacted this very area called Sandy. But
that was a superstorm. It was a hurricane in the south, Emma.
Yeah. It only now, then when it comes to the Northeast, it's no longer a hurricane. So I guess that passes Bongo's criteria.
Yeah.
Hurricane Center. So what consensus? I think you're talking about the Nomiki consensus, because that doesn't seem right.
I like the branding on that one. I might start a blog and just invite a bunch of scientists to join that blog. But I mean, Hurricane Maria is a perfect example. 4 years ago, Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico, and still to this day, they're dealing with the consequences of that hurricane, and that there are still homes without roofs and tarps. Are still covering it as they get storms constantly. The power
but that's
is,
kind of a,
you can't go.
You're not answering the question, though. All right, I got to move on. You're not going to answer me. All right. No, I'm just saying that's not what the data says. I just showed it to you, but you don't have to be interested in data.
Strongest hurricane on record is Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico.
Oh, I mean,
there's a second part too.
Yeah, let's go to the second part because, like, I mean, I love his attempt at a sleight of hand there by trying to put up one piece of like interpreted data from an institute of his choosing and then walk away.
Well, let's look at, like, so he is just doing a little bit of sleight of hand here, because what he's really arguing is not that the globe isn't warming, because that's just, like, you can see that by temperature data. What he's saying is that it has no effect, which is ridiculous. And the only way he can argue that is to have a very thin slice of data. But, like, just look at, like, rivers, for instance. Floods have generally become larger in rivers and streams across large parts of the Northwest and Midwest. Flood magnitude has generally decreased in the West and Southern Appalachia. So you can't just say more floods, climate change, but the effects measured at any local area is absolutely the globe is warming.
And notice that he only focuses on the United States there, right? I mean, the impacts of climate change and why I think, like, conservatives also are, you know, they have a sense like, we'll just adapt to this because we have the money to be able to move or do whatever we want. The areas that have been most affected by, like, I don't know, United States colonialism, areas by water sources and ports and things like that, right? They have been ravaged by hurricanes and by tropical storms and typhoons. I mean, we were just talking about the death count in the Philippines yesterday from an extreme weather event. So I believe it was a typhoon. So we can continue, but, like, the focus on the United States is also telling in and of itself.
Sometimes they don't, though. They will sometimes you will have a conversation about migration but yeah, go ahead.
Analysis of satellite imagery from the past 4 decades suggests that global warming has increased the chances of storms reaching Category 3 or higher. Also increases the area over which hurricanes can form. So
yeah,
a little bit better than just some Heartland Institute interpretation of several years and just America under certain conditions.
It's the Heartland, though. That's all they care about. It's just the Heartland. New York doesn't count. Yeah.
They based in DC, the Heartland Institute?
That would be funny. Well, the DC is Heartland, as long as it's Republican parts of DC. That's how it works.
The point that climate change is making these storms more severe. There's no evidence of that either. Here's the International Panel on Climate Change report. They say pretty clear as day, trends in tornadoes associated with severe convective storms are not robustly detected. So again, is the Nomiki consensus otherwise, that no, they're getting worse because you said so?
No, I think, like I said, it's not about getting worse. It's that there are more of them and they're getting worse. We're sitting in New York right now.
No, that's not true.
I'm wearing a turtleneck today and I'm dying of heat. We understand that it's not just about climate. And this is my question to you and to those who are not understanding what is happening. It is hard to not understand that blizzards are worse, tornadoes are worse, hurricanes are worse, there are fires. There were over 100 fires in Greece this summer, not to mention most of the Mediterranean.
Literally nothing you're saying is true. I'll put data on the screen right here.
The screen.
The last EF5 tornado struck 8 years ago. That's the longest streak of its kind on record. Nothing you're saying here is true. They're not more intense, and there's not more of them.
I'm just asking you to answer that. You keep deflecting. To the Amazon workers who died in that Amazon
facility. I'm telling it to you.
Tell that to the people who lost their homes.
But you trying to politicize their deaths is really kind of gross.
Against acknowledging what's out there outside your door? Why are you against science?
Because I believe in
by any chance a financial reason? Is it because oil and gas is funding the airwaves? I'd like to know why you are against what everybody else on this planet sees and is trying to prepare for.
I'm just citing to National Hurricane Center data and the International Panel on Climate Change. You just don't like the data.
Well, then I'll fight with a scientist. If you're going to have that, then bring on a scientist to react to that. But the problem is no scientist will debate that.
Yeah.
It's absurd.
I noticed I produced
no scientist, no global leader.
A bunch of nonsense. All right, I got to go. But thanks for joining us again. We appreciate it.
CEOs, they're reacting to climate change.
Yeah, all right. Coming up on
grumble, grumble.
I mean, okay, so this is important. Like, you can go on and you can argue facts on these shows. That doesn't work. My only agenda was the majority of Fox viewers, this is so important, believe in climate change. They believe in climate change. Majority of Fox viewers, by the way, support Roe v. Wade. This is a very different thing that's happening right now. And also, Fox can be in your gym. Fox can be in, I have a lot of Republican family members, not the born again Christian ones, but other ones that watch Fox News, don't support Trump, watch these shows and go, this is ridiculous. Why is this? But they still watch it. And so it's really important sometimes to not just like debate the facts, because that's not how people's brains work when they watch these shows. It's to be like, you're denying reality. And why are you doing it? We all know as human beings what is going on. We all feel it. We all open our windows in the day. You can sit here and deny it, but what are we going to do about it? And I don't know. Go ahead.
Can I just say about the Weather Channel tweet? The next line in it is, tragically, the streak may have come to an end.
Exactly.
They just decided to highlight the streak that ended with that tornado.
Well, and also, like, it is just zeroing in on this type of science that might be able to augment your conclusion, right? Like, this is from an NPR article. After all, most of the extreme weather events that have dominated headlines recently, from wildfires in the U.S. to historic flooding in Western Europe, have had a clear connection to high temperatures, record rainfall, and other effects of warming the planet. Tornadoes are different just because it's harder to study these things. They're rarer. We have a lot less information. But like, it's absolutely, like, conceivable, like they say, other factors like that warmer weather will cause a rise in more tornadoes, and that we haven't seen it in a slice of a few years. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. It's the same thing they do with vax stuff or COVID things. It's now that it's what the internet has allowed for. There is like open access to whatever information is necessary to make your argument, and then as long as there's like a science, the vein of, or the veil of science attached to it, and somebody who wrote it has a PhD or something, then you can assign credibility to it.
Yeah, so while scientists may not be able to conclusively connect tornado frequency or intensity to human-caused climate change, they say there are signs pointing in that direction. And, they go into that. And again, it's just like unconclusive. So that you're right about the COVID thing. Like, there's so much hay being made about what's not absolutely scientifically determined, and then they like to play in that area. And Nomi's right about like the Fox News thing too, about how they're a little bit more comfortable or a little less comfortable with doing the straight on, like, climate change is not happening. They like to outsource that to guests, and then you just emphasize like, oh, it's really warm in this place. Does that mean climate change is false? Like that's how you do it. It's by emphasis and not just direct line.
I used to do a show on Fox called Bulls and Bears, and it was on the Business Channel. The Business Channel was always acknowledging climate change, always. It was, and also the brothers were running it at the time, or one of the brothers, I don't know which one. But I remember there was this one contributor who was conservative, and he lived in Miami, and he would go on, and he was like the biggest advocate for He took it from a business approach. It was actually quite brilliant what he did. But he was like, I live in Miami. My garage has been flooded like 5 times this year because of storms. And he just, would go on and on and on. And then you flip it to Fox News, and you're like, what? It was a little bit more conservative, but this is different. This is like, I want to stress this, and we should notice these micro trends, because again, the majority of the Fox audience does not actually believe this. So who are they appealing to, and why are they trying to move people more right on this at this moment? And I mean, this I think is probably why like Chris Wallace and other folks have left, that could live in their little like reality chamber on Fox News and let the other nutcases. I mean, even Bill O'Reilly believed in climate change. It's weird. It's a very strange thing.
I mean, after An Inconvenient Truth came out, there was an all-out blitz from Fox to deny climate change, though.
Again, it wasn't. I mean, we have to go back to those years, but I was on air in those years. It was who was on. Like they'd have questions, but this is like he's literally being like, climate change is a conspiracy. I mean, I was waiting for that line. Like, climate change is not a real thing. What are you talking about? Is the stuff that people used to say when they went on air. The Heartland Institute is an American conservative and libertarian public policy think tank known for its rejection of scientific consensus on climate change, and this is my favorite, and the negative health impacts of smoking.
Ah, there you go.
And they're located in Arlington Heights, Illinois.
Well, yeah, it's a little more
worked with
heartland.
Philip Morris. I wish I'd known he was putting that on screen, because if I knew that they worked with Philip Morris in the 80s, man.
Yeah, I know, right? I mean, it's almost too perfect. Really cool says, tell No Miki to get Sam on the Bongo show. He'll debate that schmuck into the ground. I mean, he would enjoy it, I think, definitely.
Yeah.
Killface says he was probably getting pressure to make good time and drive faster, so I'm not trying to say it's all on him. I guess I might have missed an early... Oh, Killface says Semi should never be going 85, period. Okay.
I agree with that, and I agree that like that's where I would have said like if there was some sort of dangerous driving charge, like even like a couple years, but 110 years is of course absurd. And I would also say I wouldn't give him a couple years. I'd probably I think a stint in a I don't know. I don't know. I would
hold the company accountable. I would hold,
exactly.
If
Yeah.
Like, brake thing, the brakes, you should look into that. You should see what kind of training, like you said, all the things that.
Exactly. Like that's way more interesting to me than like let's have like an executive do some time.
Well, we have like, I mean, there's such a muscle memory in this country for individual vengeance against one particular person. Like even on the left, I mean, there's like that's. Or I guess maybe within the Democratic Party, like I do sometimes feel like for example, Derek Chauvin's conviction, which was necessary but insufficient, like that took all the energy out of the balloon, because too many people which it should have happened, right? But too many people who were invested in the outcome of a trial as opposed to a political movement, and I don't think that that's like even. On like the liberal side of things, the right way to go about emphasizing things.
Although I would love it if Amazon was held accountable for the deaths that occurred in their factory. That would be a really great place to put your energy. It would have maybe much bigger impact
for sure,
society-wise.
Between the 101 and the 5 says Bongino sounds like a high school kid writing a paper, cherry picking quotes to prove his thesis. Absurd. I
like the thing where he's like, where you said you could have just had a scientist on there to talk about this. Like, well, we gave you the science that we decided. Like, what? Have a scientist on, Dan. Right. Have a scientist that, I mean. He's
and not
never going to.
Right, now a libertarian think tank interpreting a scientist.
I just can't get over the no hurricanes in 10 years. Like, what are you on? Like, that's fucking false.
Right. Diego Lefty says, to the conspiracy UFO believers listening, the last time we were on the moon was 1972. We've ceded space exploration to Musk and Bezos. For fuck's sake, this is a country driven by its military industrial complex. If we had evidence of potential extraterrestrial threats, we would have colonized Mars 20 years ago, because the war machine would have been smelling dollar signs.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's funny.
Omiki Kronst, that's funny. Omicron.
Guns.
Yeah. Sam Harris oiling up with apple cider vinegar before the fight, and Peterson is dead within 2 minutes.
And what? What was the last part?
Jordan Peterson is allergic to apple cider, I guess, and so Sam Harris would lube up with apple cider vinegar before the fight, and send Jordan Peterson into shock.
Oh my god.
All right, let's do one more clip, one more call, some IMs, and then we are out of here. I mean, all of this Turning Point USA stuff is pretty nuts.
And it was in Phoenix, the America Fest.
Yeah.
They want Arizona back.
Well, exactly. So, we on the show yesterday we were talking about the evolution of the conservative victim complex, specifically from the 1950s on, and the rise of the Tea Party was one of the prongs in the book that we were discussing yesterday. Sarah Palin is the avatar of that movement in many ways. She epitomized much of what we like. She was Trump before Trump was Trump, except he's just better at it than she is. And this is evidenced by her attempt to get back into the fold with the vaccine conversation at Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA America Fest in Phoenix, Arizona. She says that she will never get the COVID vaccine, and here's why.
It'll be over my dead body that I'll have to get a shot.
Oh my God.
I will not do it.
Probably.
Doesn't sound
I
good.
won't do it, and they better not touch my kids either, because that's where the...
They're not kids anymore.
Well, Governor, some people say, though, I might lose my job. I might get kicked out of school.
So fast.
Yeah, I know. And, I think if enough of us, though, rise up and say, no, enough is enough. There are more of us than there are of them. So
no, actually there aren't. But math is not your thing, lady.
That's literally in the numbers of the number of vaccinated Americans in this country versus the number of unvaccinated adult Americans in this country. Speaking of, she does not sound good. She sounds like she has a bit of a cough.
Yeah.
She sounds like she has a sore throat, and I'm not saying anything, but she's not saying anything.
I'm saying I want that to happen.
I bet you she's actually vaccinated. I'm just gonna.
I think she's kooky enough not to be. Like we covered on at the start of the show, Trump getting booed when he said he got boosted, Bill O'Reilly saying he got boosted, DeSantis sputtering and falling over himself trying to say he didn't get boosted, even though and by not answering a direct question on it from Maria Bartiromo. I think she's sufficiently crazy enough and disconnected from where the public life of the Republican Party is at right now, and she's just up there doing her own thing, that maybe she's not vaxxed. Who knows?
I want to start a festival called Alternate Reality Fest and invite them all to speak. And it's basically the left there. They think they're showing up to a fest with the right wing, and it's actually us grilling them in front of the left. And they have to show their vaccine cards before they come in. And get them on camera showing them.
I didn't want. What was that report that came out? And not to be Cheryl Hines is married to RFK Jr.
Yeah.
How they required vaccine proof for negative tests before they had a party at their house for Christmas.
Yeah, and RFK's like, I guess I'm not in charge of the house all the time.
I guess not.
he was like, I didn't send out those invites.
That was the wife. Requiring people to be
I mean, that seems a bit dubious. I have no doubt he's a true believer about this, but I'm curious if she's vaccinated. Honestly. And that makes
she's an actor. You have to show up on sets if she's filming something right now.
I know, but there are so many actors with fake vax cards I've heard. I really think that if you're maybe she's not the level of star that I'm not going to say names I've heard. Because I don't know for a fact. But some stars just get around this stuff because they're stars.
Also, welcome back, Kyrie Irving, on Road Games.
Exactly, right? Like Kyrie Irving can't practice. Can he not practice with the team?
No,
still?
he can practice. He just can't play home games.
He can't play in home games, but he can come play on away games. That's going to be when they make the playoffs.
Authoritarianism. Look at this authoritarianism bending to the will of,
I know.
to make exceptions for powerful people.
It's incredible.
And then Jimmy Dore interviewed RFK Jr. Did you guys see that?
I did see, but I didn't watch any of it. I just I'm not wasting.
Saw that it happened. Yeah.
We kind of, I feel like the Majority Report's project of showing how much of a clown Jimmy is for years, even before I started here, is pretty much complete.
Yeah.
Just wanted to give you a little update. It was a fun one.
Oh, I appreciate it. It's still something I enjoy keeping tabs on, even though it's not as necessary to delegitimize him anymore. It's happened.
Yeah, still no surprises on that front.
Right.
But here's the problem, guys. Sorry to burst your bubble. It's not about him taking over the left. They just wanted a little bit. Like Bannon said, his entire experiment was he needs 20% of the left. And it's not 20%, depending on what state is it? Did somebody stay home? And, the margins are so close right now. And the Proud Boys are running locally right now across the country for school boards and city council. So if you have that in you right now to run, please do it. Because the Democratic Party is not going to throw in any money for that. But simultaneously, the margins are so small that actually, with a bunch of other strategies, might be enough.
Right. To that point, before we move past this topic, I'm sending you a tweet. Bradley, can you put this up when you get it? So this is I guess a screenshot from the testimony of one of the Capitol rioters, insurrectionists. He was sentenced, Devlin Thompson. I believe he was sentenced.
His name's Devlin?
Yeah, not great. But this is the tweet below. If at some point, Bradley, you can look up what he was sentenced to. These are the things that he says that he listens to. Prior to the incident, how many hours a week would you say you spent researching political websites? The answer, 15 to 20 hours per week. Does that include the podcasts that I listen to? Including podcasts, probably 30 to 40 hours per week. I was thirsty for news that wasn't being censored. I listened to Tim Pool, Disaffected Liberal, which I tried to look up. It might, I don't know. Is that an actual podcast? Is that Miserable Liberal?
Yeah, that's what my guess would be.
That's Jimmy's wife, right?
But I don't know. I've never heard that. That's her name, right? Does she have her own show?
I don't know if she has her own show. So people can write in and let me know what they think.
But that's a very funny branding either way.
Right, right. Dave Rubin. I met Dave Rubin when he was on tour. I was reading Pundit's Gateway, which it seems like he means the Gateway Pundit.
Yeah.
The Federalist, Zero Hedge, which is a libertarian far-right website, and Gray Zone.
Gray Zone, look at that.
I was reading them for balance.
Oh yeah, okay.
Okay. I don't know how he defines balance. Is it just putting another cinder block on the other side of the weight?
This is I think
the seesaw.
I think the next sentence is describing Gray Zone. I was reading them for balance compared to the other right-wing stuff he was doing. Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's I mean, I wonder what Gray Zone has to say about this.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I think they love it.
Yeah. So to Nomi's point about them just needing a sliver of a certain audience, these are people who are in some ways maybe have proclivities that could go down a fascist right-wing way, but they could go other ways too. They're a bit, he got 46 months, Bradley says, in prison, just shy of 4 years. So, I mean, these are the outlets that they're consuming, and the Gray Zone is in tandem with, the Federalist, the Gateway Pundit. I mean, that's Tim Pool, Dave Rubin, who also attempted to bring over people from the left by being the last liberal. Maybe that's what he was referring to as the miserable, or whatever he called the disaffected liberals. So.
Yeah, the Gray Zone just hates censoring people, but they will like to suggest that Noam Chomsky has lost his mind because he supports vaccine mandates. But
right.
Go ahead.
This is a propaganda pipeline. Can we just talk about what it is? It's not that everyone is going to be conservative or progressive on it. It's a pipeline. They find something that it's you start at, somebody that I don't want to even name names or give some of these people attention, but they all have each other on, and then they are introduced to them, and then they go to that show, and that show, they say something really interesting on that show, and then it is a pipeline. And and part of their utility, some of these people, some is to bring in new people and introduce them to more conservatives. But like I think the gray zone in particular is there to basically character assassinate anybody who would stand in the way of their reason by throwing out things like, you're in the CIA, Noam Chomsky. I think they've said that about Noam Chomsky too. Whether it's Anna, there's this whole crazy video about Anna Ben Dixon and myself being part of like the deep state, and it's absolutely bonkers. But they legitimize themselves by doing other stuff that seems like, oh, no one's in this country doing this work. And then when you talk to actual reporters on the ground there, they're like, these guys are wreaking havoc, getting the story wrong. They're not real reporters, and also where is their money coming from? Because you know how hard it is to run an international news outlet? Like, I really want to understand how the gray zone is more equipped to do this than say like a major news publication like the Washington Post, for instance.
Well, I mean, I think just straightforwardly, a lot of the money comes from venture capitalists. Yeah. Like, that's a big part of all this group of folks that, they're not anywhere connected to the CIA while they make deals with Peter Thiel and those sorts of folks.
Right. And something like Washington Post, they're not above reproach. Like, they're able to be, you can criticize coverage 100%. I mean, someone just wrote in yesterday and asked, how can I talk to my mom about like some of the New York Times' biases? And I brought up a litany of examples of like how wrong they got the Iraq War and how they did have sources in like the intelligence community. Yeah, Judith Miller, like how they did have sources in the intelligence community that were feeding them garbage. But you have to take these things on like on an individual case by case basis, and like just basically being, the point really being is this is a propaganda effort, as Nomi said, in a pipeline.
Propaganda pipeline.
This is right.
Also, in addition to venture capital money, a lot of these people are really have a lot of crypto earnings and holdings, and I would just wonder if they can be honest and say like that's why they don't ever criticize that stuff.
It's interesting too. I saw Wall Street Journal headline: the top 0.01% of crypto holders own 27% of the crypto money. Sounds like a real democratizing effort there.
Yeah, and there's the majority, there's a white supremacy angle too. I don't know what the statistic is. If you guys can look that up, it was a story that came out last week, or someone who's able to look these things up fast. Sorry.
But it's nice for people with famous dads to commodify free speech for venture capitalists. So thanks for those guys for doing that. I really appreciate it.
And he has the nerve to talk about other people's parents.
Those guys.
That's so fun.
And I would just ask another, while I'm being spicy, when these people were going at Noam Chomsky, you know who was very silent despite liking to traffic in Noam Chomsky's name all the time? Glenn Greenwald didn't say shit about that. So go at, maybe you should have that discussion, Glenn, with Noam, because I thought that was
love to see that.
The way that those people were going at Noam, and the way that particularly in Portuguese, Glenn likes to make use of Noam's name as the lineage of civil libertarian. He's in bullshit, absolutely bullshit.
We are not going to have enough time for calls today, but I did want. I'm glad I remembered to bring up the that tweet actually.
Can I say one more thing on that? I'm so sorry.
Sure.
This is important. I'm really concerned, and we're having him on the show, I believe, on Wednesday, if I'm correct, or on Friday, I'm not sure. Stephen Donziger, who has become a good friend, and I really think he's a brilliant man, and he has gone through. I mean, he has tremendous courage, but also he's not fluent in this media space because that's not his job. He's a lawyer who fights for Indigenous people. I'm really concerned that he's being weaponized in kind of like a Free Assange way. That the basis for their argument, even with Free Assange, is, I believe, correct. It is what they are doing with it and how they are using it as a weapon that really concerns me. And I just want to make sure that folks, like, maybe we can have Stephen back on like Majority Report more, because he's a brilliant person who does incredible work, and like to set the precedent of a lawyer being convicted in a very corrupt way is really setting a precedent for other lawyers who have that courage to fight for Indigenous people or marginalized communities and take on corporations. And so I just, in the experiment of going after the American empire, they're unfortunately using really good people, and he's not the only one. They do this with other folks too. And I just want to say that out loud, because like I know some people have been watching that lately and like messaging me and asking like what his affiliation is. I was like, he's just a great lawyer, and they want to capitalize with that.
My main concern in this department is that people forget the main underlying principles, and like even with the Assange thing, like I've never trusted Assange, but like the principles, I think this thing is so clear. I'd also like to make a request to our venture capital contrarians. Can we get Snowden archive selects released on Rumble?
But that's impossible because that needs to be held for financial gain.
Can we? Well, and that's what I'm saying. Let's just drip it out. Let's let like our
Free
civil
speech.
libertarians and Peter Thiel get together and decide what we need to see from the remainder of the Snowden archive, which was commodified for PayPal billionaires.
I love when Matt gets spicy. All right, we are going to read like maybe 5-10 more IMs, then we're going to get out of here. Another Matt writes in, regarding Succession, I can totally see how easily corruption happens. I'm rooting for the Roys, even though they're horrible, and I'm even trying to come up with other ways they can stop whistleblowers or how better spin info their way. I can see how you can get caught up in how thousands of human lives become nothing but collateral damage in an attempt to get petty revenge on your corporate rivals, a window into the ruling class psychopathy, and how easy it is for people to internalize it even as a viewer. Remember, you can't make a Tomlet without breaking some Gregs. Wonderful advice. That's one of the great lines from there. Prairie Fire Kowalski, sorry for sounding winded and a bit rushed. I had a driveline explode on the PTO driveline to an auger, and I had metal fragments in my arm, and I was in the middle of trying to fix this piece of equipment. I hope you're okay, Kowalski.
Whoa.
Jesus, and you still have found time to call into the show?
He had metal things in his arm?
Oddly,
Go to the doctor, hospital, now.
Oddly enough, I've been wearing a heavy winter coat for what should be winter, and I probably would not be bleeding. Oh, so right. I'm curious if these Okay, well, I hope you're okay. You're going to move on to another topic now, but amazing. I'm curious if these anti-vax people would discourage me from getting a tetanus shot. I've had a commercial driver's license since I was 19, so I'm qualified to drive a 90,000-pound tractor trailer on a highway or an 80,000-pound tractor trailer on the interstate. The rules for truck drivers are very strict compared to everyone else and statistically are the safest people on the road. However, over the last 30 years, truck driving has been slowly transitioning into a gig profession, and there are many relaxed state regulations for truck drivers if you stay in state. This is a great point. This is one of those instances where state deregulation has cost lives, income, and job security. Anywho, on Thursday, I expect a lengthy final year-end agricultural summary report left as best. I will be looking forward to it. Between the 1 and 1 and the 5, important to Nomiki's point about supporting local left candidates, Mike Bonin, a sitting city council member in Los Angeles, a burner, and perhaps one of the best advocates for equitable policies for housing and homelessness in the country, is facing a right-wing recall. Please support him.
That's I didn't know that. Wow. He's facing a recall. So, okay, not just supporting these people, because we can't always be on defense too. You should support him completely. He's a really great, really great leader. But like, please, if you're thinking about running hyper local is not as cost prohibitive. It's easier to organize. Get involved in your community. Like if you're running for school board or city council, obviously depends on where you live for city council. It is, I know a lot of people want to run for Congress and it's great that you do, but you can actually do like immediate change. Like Congress is as we see, set up to fail. Like it's not, so, not even like just state Senate and hyper local, because that's how they build their pipeline. And unfortunately the Democratic Party doesn't build a pipeline. So we got to do it on our own.
Yep.
Go run.
5 more. Cooper Tots 89. Love the show. Just became a member. Can I get a shofar for my birthday? Again, without Sam here, we can't do the. Matt's gonna be really a nice guy and go to the soundboard physically himself. Look at that. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. It's the first day of winter, right?
Yeah. 4 more. Flarechild says, thanks for standing up to Ding Dong Bino. Nomiki is a fighter.
I'm gonna call him. I'm gonna call him Mangina next time I go. I'm just gonna say it.
Evan Flo says, hey MR crew, I haven't been tuning in a whole lot for my mental health. Bad news is gross. So I'm not sure what you guys have said about this, but I love a quick summary. What exactly do we do about Manchin, centrists, and the Dem Party? Obviously, I'm pretty mad that they weren't able to pass BBB, but not mad enough just to hand leadership over to Trump's cult. Do we primary for more progressive candidates and boot the centrists out, or what's the game plan? I mean, like electoralism isn't like the only answer. You have to organize on the ground and make sure that you plant these seeds for the long term. And eventually, like, we can't have someone like Manchin in a power position as the 50th vote. There needs to be more of a cushion, honestly, from an electoral standpoint.
There will be another Manchin. I mean, I'm of the perspective that something like this is the, you know, it's not just how the Senate's designed, but like, I think we should be screaming from the mountaintops that this was on Joe Biden. That's why he is using this whole thing, like the talks broke down. But I frankly, like, there are a lot of things that Joe Biden could do, like investigate him. I'm just going to keep saying it over and over again. Investigate him. Launch an investigation. That's the leverage against him. It's the only thing he'll respond to. He's not going to. He's going to say, "I want to leave the Republican Party, or leave the Democratic Party and go be an independent." That's his leverage. He's always going to have something like that. But one thing that'll get him to act is if he might have to face consequences for his financial dealings.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think Biden will. I mean, it'd be nice if Biden did that, but I think he said, like, he's playing a role right now. One thing I think should be on the table is I don't feel comfortable telling our audience to donate to squad members if they're going to share those small donations with squishy members of Congress. And I think that needs to absolutely be on the table.
Well, now that Pelosi has essentially burned her bridge with the Progressive Caucus by they voted against it anyway, but Pelosi's negotiations going forward with, if Build Back Better completely dies, with the squad and the Progressive Caucus is going to be really, really fragmented, because basically Jayapal relented in a way that I don't agree with, based on a promise from Pelosi that, like, and Biden, that they had Manchin in the bag. And so, like, that was a false promise in order to deliver for these centrists in the swing districts that Pelosi's obsessed with. So, there should be consequences, as Matt says. All right, 2 more, and then we gotta run. Manchin fucks dogs. Writes in again. I'm sorry for getting testy with you earlier, but because here you go. Tons of actors use them. You are right, Emma, especially in the New Age spiritual movement where they play progressive.
Pipeline. Propaganda pipeline.
No, the vax cards, the celebrities, the fake vax cards. You're right. And the final IM of the day. Spicy Mate, bringing those Oppenheim vibes, says Dab Rangun. I don't know what that means. What's an Oppenheim vibe?
Is that like Oppenheimer? I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will leave on an obscure IM. No,
is he saying Oppenheim like selling Sunset Oppenheim?
Oh, that makes more
Oppenheim
sense.
Group.
I was thinking Oppenheim is like the Manhattan Project Oppenheimer, but okay. Oppenheim, yeah, I forgot about selling Sunset. Thank you, Bradley.
All right, guys. Thanks so much. Naomi, Happy New Year.
Oh, I'm not going to see you. You're right.
Happy Festivus. Have a great rest of your year. Merry holidays. Everyone else, we will see you tomorrow.
See y'all.
Later.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there.